All right, good morning, everybody. Today we are taking a new crack at the tier list for 2026. Now, the tier list has changed quite a bit since the last rendition of it. Not only are there new sinners, but there's also new rules for Dark Zone. And, the meta is always shifting. With new sinners, new options are available, and some of the new options are just better than previous options. It's kind of just what happens. And in some cases, sinners are aging better and better and better. I'm looking at Infer just getting better over time. Looking at Millie and Raven just getting stronger as more sinners are released. And there's a lot of room for this. So I am going to go alphabetically this time. With the one caveat here, I'm going to start off with the latest sinner to be released on global servers, and that is Hilda. Hilda is currently the most recent sinner to be released, and I want to talk about her. She is part of the Aurum Secretum team with Hypatia and Irea, and I couldn't tell you how strong they are. So the problem right now is that only Hilda and Hypatia are on global servers, and together they're not good enough. They're probably in like the usable if you're a fan category when used together, but they're not playing around the resonance mechanic yet because the resonance mechanic isn't released yet. So they're really going to need Ireha to like sort of enter a possibility of being a dedicated team. I thought just these two would be enough. Right? I thought Hilda Hypatia would be strong. Turns out that they do need Ireha to sort of get around the block. So we're going to reevaluate these three when Irea comes to global servers and I can do proper testing with her. But I'm hoping they at least hit the meta tier, right? That's the goal. The tier names have changed a little bit, but it's the same idea. You have some people who are just like genuinely too powerful. We'll get to those very quickly. Anzo's favorites, these are the ones that can be used everywhere. Meta is a little bit weaker. Off meta, you're starting to get in some weird territory. And then like the ones that I wouldn't bring to BFL and stuff like that. But starting off, we're taking a look at Zero. Zero, a lot of people are going to say that she should go into the Anzo's favorite category. But while Zero enables a lot of things with her core breaking, her damage is actually not as high as other alternatives. Because her damage doesn't keep up with other alternatives, I am going to put her at like the very top of the meta tier. She's very strong center, very strong and like flexible because you can just include Zero as like a core breaker and just break a billion cores and pop off. You can put her in with Umbra Core. You can put her in with all sorts of different strategies like Hell in the Cresta. Like Zero works very well with a wide variety of teams. And while she does do good damage, it's not insane. Because when we're looking at people who have insane damage, we're looking at Adela. Adela is genuinely too powerful. She's flexible. She can fit on like every team. Pretty much every team, like any physical team. And like her best partner is Jelena, but she doesn't need Jelena. Jelena does improve her damage by a lot, but outside of Jelena, Adela doesn't need anybody. And it's just so much damage. It's so flexible. You can use her in endless wave categories, or you can use her as a boss nuker. And she does genuinely too much damage. Adela was a mistake, and I don't know how it got approved. You use Adela in Umbra Core, use her with Jelena, use her anywhere. Just legitimately, like, Adela can be used with anybody, anywhere, anytime. Okay, moving on to Angel. Angel is in the off-meta category. I'm a big fan of Angel, and I still think Angel has a lot of sticking power. She has a lot of oomph that really lets her shine in certain content. But unfortunately, that content is becoming more and more sparse. And Angel's whole reward for breaking cores, other people are getting better rewards for breaking cores. So it's hard to put Angel any higher when other people are starting to take her job and sort of do it better. That being said, Angel still has phenomenal burst damage when the map allows her to have phenomenal burst damage. And she's able to break a lot of cores, right? Like, she still has the ult, ECB, ult combo that can break 4 cores if you need somebody to break 4 cores. So I would classify her as like a secondary DPS and just sort of understand that she's there to execute key targets that are either like grouped with the boss or are like, you need somebody to take care of this one wave that's hiding in the corner, right? Like, Angel is your girl if you need her to burst down something fast. But you only get so many casts. You can't really spam and power on Angel. She really does have to play around her mechanics, and that slows her down quite a bit. And she can only be used as like a secondary DPS because the stage isn't going to allow her to just spam her ult 20 times. And she's going to need that if she wants to like beat a BFL boss. Okay, moving on to Anne. Honestly, I should have just like a healer tier. Just like all of the healers go here because they all do the same thing, right? Like all of the healers are meta. They heal. What more do you need? Just, you know, I'm gonna put the healers in off meta, and if they heal with some sauce, they're gonna go in the meta. Okay, that's just what it comes down to. Most healers are gonna go into this off meta. If they heal and do something else, they're gonna go into meta. So with that being said, Ariel, welcome to the off meta. Every team needs a healer. Pick your favorite healer. Doesn't matter which one, it's gonna work. As for Arc, I should mention that Ariel's Reforge is also really good if you decide to go for Ariel's Reforge. I wouldn't really recommend it because she does her job without her Reforge, and Reforge materials are very rare. But for my big Ariel fans, like, yeah, Reforge her. She's crazy. She's like better than Hamel with her Reforge. Okay, looking at Arc. Arc is in the usable tier if you're a fan. Big SP costs and not too much payoff for that SP cost. She does have pretty good nukes, and she kind of operates the same way that Jane does in more casual contents. She's just kind of doing infinite wave clear, and that's sort of like her call to fame. The problem is that she has a lot of positional requirements, and even then, like, the super high SP costs. So while it's good and really good, like usable, like if you need somebody to defeat 20 enemies that are grouped up on top of each other, like Arc is your girl. But it's the flexibility that hurts her. She's really looking at just like nuking that one group of mobs with very strict positional requirements, and it's hard to play around. Augustus. Augustus is in the genuinely too powerful category. I would say that she's actually weaker than Adela, just because Adela... Why does Adela do so much damage? I don't understand. And Adela like doesn't even need her shackles or anything. She just needs her ECP3. But anyways, Augustus. Augustus is the most brain dead character to play. You just click her ultimate and Aura Farm, pair her with Singlinde, pop off, have a nice time. There's not much that you need to know about Augustus other than she does a billion damage and her ECB is used as an execute to finish the fight. If you do that, congratulations, Augustus is incredible. That being said, Augustus does have some partners, some like dedicated partners. Her big first one that you're always going to want to use, it's Singlinde, so she's going to be in the S's. My ability to do the alphabet is on full display here because I don't see Singlinde. We got Rise, so S is up next. Serpent, yep, Singlinde, there she is. Okay. Singlinde is the best support for any Shattered Blade team. Augustus uses Shattered Blades, so her best support is Singlinde, who not only increases her damage, but also gives her more Shattered Blades to play with. This is both a damage amp and like an SP battery, right? Like, Singlinde does it all for the Shattered Blade team. So, Augustus and Singlinde are a really powerful duo. They don't need any help outside of that. I have entire videos where Augustus is like duoing most of the game. Like, I think Augustus and Singlinde can literally duo the entire game if you want them to. I think it's possible. But with that being said, they do have even more support in the form of Seto. Seto is another Shattered Blade member, and Seto is the dedicated core breaker on the team. And whenever Seto uses her ultimate to break cores, she gets her ultimate partially refunded based on how many cores she breaks. If she breaks 5 cores, then her ultimate is fully refunded. And whenever Seto uses her ultimate, the target of her ultimate will take increased true damage. And this team, the Shattered Blade team, is dealing true damage. So Seto is just like a match made in heaven for all your core breaking needs on this team. Not only is she using the Shattered Blade mechanic like everybody else, but again, she's also the dedicated core breaker and the dedicated damage amp for the team. Seto does it all in one nice package. Seto doesn't have to be used on the Shattered Blade team. Like, you can use Seto in like an Umbra core or with like Necresta Hela, but in those situations, Seto's going to get moved down to the meta tier. Like a different variant of like what Zero's doing, where she's just breaking a billion cores and getting value from breaking a billion cores. It's still good. Like, it's still very meta to play Seto outside of Shattered Blade. But if you want to use Seto, you should be doing it inside of Shattered Blade. So I'm going to put her in the genuinely too powerful tier, because when used in Shattered Blade, Seto is genuinely too powerful. Okay, when looking at Bai Yi is going into Anzo's favorites. So Bai Yi goes into the Umber Core team, and she nukes the entire stage. Surprisingly not as good as Adela, mainly because Adela can be used everywhere, and Bai Yi is restricted to like Umber Core, and like Bai Yi needs cores to break. Bai Yi needs particular teammates, and Adela doesn't need any of that. So the flexibility is where Adela sort of wins out over Bai Yi. But Reforged Bai Yi is absolutely incredible, and we're going to move on to her dedicated partners in that regard. So the first dedicated partner that she has is absolutely going to be Parfait. And I need to find Parfait in this wall of sinners. Parfait. That's Millie. That's not Parfait. Picasso. Parfait. There she is. Okay. We found her. So Parfait is like the main sinner that is used when we're talking about Umber Core. She's the one who provides the strongest buffs for the Umber Core team. And if you're ever using Bai Yi, it should be used with Parfait so that you're able to stack Bai Yi's damage into the ceiling. And when we're talking about that, we also have Graves. Graves is also one of Anzo's favorites. It's the Umber Core team, and the Umber Core team is just insane. Graves provides weaker buffs than Parfait, and she does like a little bit of splash damage herself. Like she provides a little hint of damage whenever cores are broken, but it's not really that important. Graves' big thing is that whenever her allies break cores, they get attack buffs. They just get stronger. So you just put Graves on the field, and all of a sudden Bai Yi's hitting stronger. Now, to clarify, you absolutely can use like Zero in this Umber Core team, right? And Zero's going to pop off. But Zero's damage is significantly less than Bai Yi's, at least in my experience. So I think Bai Yi is definitely like the stronger variant. But if you want to use Zero on this team, like, absolutely go ahead. Like, there's nothing stopping this from working. This is actually the OG setup, and it's solid. It'll work. So either way you want to do it, but I recommend Bai Yi in this team over Zero. Speaking of Umber Cores, we're starting to get into a little bit of the weeds here, but I am going to bring up Helena Cresta because we've mentioned her a few times now. Where is Helena Cresta? There's Hella. Oh, there's no Helena Cresta. Oh. Or is it Necresta Hella? Is it in the in category? Yeah, it's in the in category. There we are. Helena Cresta. Necresta Hella. I'm putting her at like the top of Anzo's favorites. Hella works on the Umber Core team, but not in the way that most people think. The Cresta Hella is a very complicated sinner and a very misunderstood one on top of that. So there's a lot of context when it comes to Cresta Hella. For instance, Parfait gives her bonuses when her allies break cores. Hella breaks cores very slowly. She does not get any benefits from Parfait. Hella does not break very many cores, so she's not getting buffed very hard by Graves. Like, even though Hella does really well in these Umber Core teams, she's not benefiting from Umber Core. It's just that Helena Cresta is so strong, that you put her on Umber Core and she just brute forces it. And specifically, like, she works really well with Zero because Zero is breaking so many cores, and the Cresta Hella looks genuinely insane. So it's weird for me to explain Helena Cresta. I haven't even made a guide for her yet because she's so complicated. But what ends up happening is you don't need to put her in Umber Core. You just need her allies to break cores or attempt to break cores. If her allies attempt to break cores, then Helena Cresta is going to fire a billion lingering wills and she's going to pop the fuck off. But honestly, if you want to play around Helena Cresta, like just Helena Cresta, you don't use her in Umber Core. You use her with 0, and then you pile on like a billion generic buffers. You use Cabernet, you use Infer, you use Shen, you use LL. You use those 4 with Helena Cresta in 0, and it's going to do better than Umber Core. Because all of the damage in these Helena Cresta setups is coming from Necresta Hela. And Umber Core doesn't buff Helena Cresta strong enough. So while you can use Helena Cresta as like a splash on Umber Core teams, it's better if you just use generic buffers to buff Necresta Hela directly and then have one core breaker sort of popping off to fuel Necresta Hela. So it's the core breaker is what fuels Necresta Hela, not Umber Core. It's confusing and it's complicated, but trust me, she doesn't need Umber Core, she just needs the core breaker. Okay, that was a lot of words. Moving on, I really should go ahead and make a separate category that just says, let's do add a row below. Let's make it red. And we'll put Anzo's favorites. And then we'll say Umbra Core. Okay, and we're going to put Bailly, Parfait, Graves. We're going to put 0 down at the back. And we're going to leave Necresta Hela here in Anzo's favorites because Necresta Hela works on more than just Umber Core. And I want to denote that Necresta Hela works on like all physical teams as long as you're breaking cores. And she transcends beyond Umber Core. Right, Necresta Hela is better than Umber Core. Necresta Hela is one of the best centers in the game. She's insanely powerful. Okay, moving on. We are talking on to Weak Spot. And I have some mild spoilers here. We're going to make this red, and we're going to add a row below. We're going to make it red. And this is going to be Anzo's favorites again. Are A's favorites? This is going to be the Weak Spot team. If I can type. Okay, so Bianca is like the key shining star of Weak Spot. And Weak Spot is still good, like modern day, current, without Margaret. Weak Spot is still good. Like Weak Spot can still clear BFL. I don't play it too much because I played a lot of Weak Spot when it was like the only option in the game, and I'm a little sick and tired of Weak Spot because I used it way too much. I'm talking like daily for months I used Weak Spot. And while it's still good and it's like still a meta strategy, Weak Spot is getting some support. There is a new Weak Spot center, Margaret, that is not released yet on the global servers, but Margaret is now the 4th Weak Spot member, and Weak Spot is absurd again. You're going to be seeing a lot of Weak Spot because this is just an insane setup combination. Like Weak Spot didn't need the support, but they got support. So I'm going to go find Sean and put her in the mix. And then I'm going to go find Golan and put her in the mix. Where's my girl Golan at? There she is. So Weak Spot's insane again. Use it with Lady Pearl. Use it with Shin. Those are probably your best options, but there's a ton of other options that this team works with. The big problem that you're going to have is core breaking. Margaret does help with the core breaking, but it's still weak on the core breaking. So you're going to need some help, but this team it's absurd. And yeah, it's better than Umber Core. It might actually be in the genuinely too powerful category. I'm a little worried that this team is going to like pop off a little too hard, but I'm going to leave them in the Anzo's favorite category, better than Umber Core, because Weak Spot was insane in its prime, and it's just getting better now. Okay, Cabernet. Cabernet we don't see much of anymore because she has been replaced by Shin. If you have Shin, there's no reason to use Cabernet. But if you don't have Shin, then Cabernet is still one of the best centers in the game. Shin just does the job better, and that's really what it comes down to. But Cabernet, she still provides that 30% attack boost. She lets her allies hit over armor. I have to get into the math discussion real quick. In Paths to Nowhere, defenses are calculated as a flat reduction. Okay, let's say you have 1,000 attack, and the enemy has 900 defense. Okay, what ends up happening is that it's your 1000 minus their 900, so you're left with 100 effective attack, and then all of your multipliers are applied. So if you do like 5,000% damage, you do that 100 effective attack times your 5,000 damage, right? That's how it's going to work. But when we talk about attack buffs, those attack buffs are applied before defense reductions are applied. So you're going to, Cabernet's 30% attack boost is going to turn that 1,000 attack into 1,300 attack. And it's going to be 1,300 minus 900. And you'll have 400 effective attack. So in that scenario, Cabernet's 30% attack boost increased your damage by 400%. So Cabernet and all attack boost really are invaluable when it comes to hitting over armor. The only teams that don't care about attack boosts are going to be true damage dealers like Augustus. Like they're not going to be nearly as effective. Like you're not going to boost a true damage team by 400% because they're already ignoring defense, right? They don't need to hit over defense because they just ignore it entirely. But every other team, physical and magical, attack boosts are like the thing to grab, right? Like damage boosts are weaker. If you have a 40% damage boost, that is not nearly as good as a 40% attack boost. Because again, that attack boost is being applied before armor, where all of the other buffs are being applied after armor. So Cabernet, still in a league of unparalleled proportions. She's still incredible. That being said, Crescent Hill is still better. Looking at, oh my god, I'm going to forget her name. She's one of my favorites. I almost called her Cassian. I want to call her Cassia, but it feels weird that they have like a Cassian and a Cassia. Am I going crazy? Is her name not Cassia? It is Cassia. We have Cassia and Cassian. It's crazy. Okay, looking at Cassia, she's usable. There's a lot of hope for her that we were going to get some like self-damaging centers and that she would be able to really, really pop off with like an infinite ultimates that can also increase everybody's attack speed. And we were kind of hoping that she would pop off and become like a powerhouse. Unfortunately, that never came to be an actual thing. And Cassia is still waiting for teammates for her to be worthwhile to include with. So until like very specific centers come out that I don't think are coming out, Cassia is going to be in the if you're a fan category. She has some healing. She boosts attack speed by a little bit. She has a little bit of sauce, but it's nothing incredible. You're going to have better results using others. Okay, moving on to Cassian. Cassian is one of Anzo's favorites, actually. You know what? No. I'm going to put him in meta tier. No, not quite favorites. Cassian is a damage buffer, and he has a lot of interesting sauce when it comes to, like, reviving. He can revive spam and increase his team's damage by reviving. So there's a lot of sauce with him, and you're going to... Occasionally, you're going to see, like, very niche scenarios where Cassian just kind of, like, trolls the boss. Like the boss has an insta-kill mechanic that's supposed to be really scary, but then Cassian just kind of like, I take your insta-kill mechanic and I revive myself. Like, that's really good. But also, he just buffs everybody's damage. So just like as like a mini infer, Cassian is great. Even if you don't use the revive stuff and you're just like, I want 0 to do more damage, Cassian's great. Like it's strong. I mean, it's not quite as strong as like the S ranks, honestly. Like Infer is still better. She has core break and a stronger damage boost. But Cassian does have a really solid damage boost, and he has a lot of like revive utility beyond just that. So really, really strong center. You don't see much of him. The game is just saturated with a lot of S ranks at this point, and it's hard for everybody to see limelight time in videos. But Cassian's really good. Looking at Chameleon. Chameleon fails to properly fulfill her own role. She's supposed to increase everybody's attack speed, but it takes so long for her to stack up all of her attack speed buffs that it's not worth it. Like her SP cost is really high, and her buffs don't do much until they're stacked. So you end up spending like 2 minutes stacking your attack speed, and then you have a little bit of attack speed. You have like 50% or something like that, maybe even less than that, for the last like 30 seconds of the fight. Like, why would you ever use Chameleon and spend your entire time trying to buff attack speed when you could just like throw in Lady Pearl, wherever Lady Pearl is? You could just throw in Lady Pearl and instantly increase everybody's attack speed by 50%. Like, you just have all of the buffs that that Chameleon is trying to apply, but you get them instantly with Lady Pearl. And I know it only lasts for 10 seconds, but like, it's the trade-off of spending the entire like 2-minute fight trying to stack attack speed buffs for the last leg of the fight. This does not compare to Lady Pearl breaking cores and instantly increasing everybody's attack speed by 50% with like 0 setup. So Chameleon's like attack speed niche, she just doesn't do it well enough for her to stay viable. Okay, looking at Che. I'm going to Put Che in the usable if you're a fan category. Che used to be a god. Used to be the god amongst gods. But Path to Nowhere has introduced a lot of core breaking over the years. Pretty much everybody has core breaking now. Like, core breaking used to be a rare treat where teams just needed somebody to be around and smack cores around a little. And Che was great at that. But nowadays we have like Zero, we have Bahi, we have Graves. Like, every team just has so many core breaking answers that you don't really need Che anymore. And he's still good, he's still usable, but I wouldn't even put him in off meta tier, because it's, if you have a better core breaker than Che, just use them. He's been replaced. The Che's niche is no longer a niche, it's very populated, and Che is struggling to sort of reclaim his old throne with so much, which the competition being so much more fierce. Okay, next up we have Christina. Christina is a troubled child. She is the red-haired stepsister of the family, unfortunately. She doesn't do anything. That's her big problem. She has this one idea where whenever a normal attack is done, her allies do more damage, and it has a 1-second cooldown. If it didn't have the 1-second cooldown, maybe Christina is usable. But the 1-second cooldown really put up like a really hard guardrail on Christina. And beyond just that, her kit is split like 50-50 between defense and offense, and her defense capabilities are attached to her core breaking attack. So she's going to break the cores, and by breaking the cores, the target's going to be stunned, and for the entire duration that the target is stunned, Christina becomes tankier. But why does Christina need to be tankier when the target is literally stunned? Doesn't make any sense. And her offense is just not enough to make up for the fact that her kit is just so convoluted and useless. She doesn't do any damage, and the mix of offense and defense just isn't enough. She doesn't have the sauce that she needs. She fails to properly fulfill her own role. Unfortunate. Cinnabar is usable. I'm going to put her above Cassia. Cinnabar is just a tank. She applies shields. Like, if you're playing around and you want a tank that can apply shields, like, cool, Cinnabar works. She's going to fall into the category where most Enduras will fall, where it's like, yeah, if you want an Endura, this is an Endura. And that's where Cinnabar falls. Kokalik is usable. She is better than Che. Kokalik used to have a dedicated team. It was the Kokalik attack speed team, and we might see it return in the future. We were hoping that it would return with Synex, but it didn't exactly work out, because, well, we'll get to Synex when we get to Synex. You'll understand what I mean. But Kokalik's attack speed team, she would apply flowers to all of her teammates. Her teammates would attack 1 billion times every second. And when you used Kokalik's ECB, you had 10 seconds to clear the stage. And back in the day, when you had 10 seconds to clear the stage, Kokalik would clear the stage. Nowadays, Kokalik doesn't hit hard enough, and there's a bigger emphasis on like AoE rather than single target. And Kokalik really does struggle with the modern day AoE requirements. So it's difficult for her to keep up. She still has decent damage and healing if you're able to like slap her on the field and swing at a boss for 20 minutes or like 2 minutes or something like that, then Koklik, she will actually do some pretty good damage and keep your team topped off pretty well. But for the most part, there's just better options. There's not too many times you need like a DPS healing hybrid, and that's really what she is now. Like, she doesn't offer any core break, she doesn't offer really any supportive capabilities. She's just there to heal while providing a small section of DPS. So usable, but I wouldn't go as far as to put her in off meta. It's not that great. Okay, Corso. Corso is somehow worse than Christina. Corso has this like weapon juggling mechanic where she's supposed to move to throw weapons, but the weapons don't do anything and the movement is too complicated. So she kind of just exists and nobody wants to use her. I don't think there's a single person who plays this game who's like, yeah, Corso is a well-designed character and they should build more characters like Corso. Like, there's not a single person who's saying that. Her kit is a mess and she needs some like real genuine help that she's never going to get. I don't even think a Reforge can save Corso because her mechanics are just so painful to play around, and it really does limit what this character can do. Okay, next up is Chelsea. Chelsea is an Endura who can block 2, who can block 3. She has a cat, and her cat can block, and she can block. And there is some like niche content where like the damage share between Chelsea and the cat makes her a really, really, really strong Endura. But for the most part, Chelsea is an Endura who can block 2, and that's all you're using Chelsea for. You're blocking 2 while using Chelsea. And if you need an Endura who can block 2, then Chelsea works. Yeah, if you're a fan, use her. Crash. Crash has a Reforge. And I don't know anything about Crash's Reforge. To be decided. I couldn't tell you. I haven't seen any footage, or I haven't seen enough footage of Crash's Reforge yet. So I don't know if Crash's Reforge saves her or not. If we're talking about Crash without her Reforge, fails to properly fulfill her own role. It's just too convoluted and messy, like going in stealth and not doing anything for a small payoff on her ultimate is not good. And it shouldn't be considered. It had a time at the start of the game when like the Pattern first released, where Crash did have like the highest burst damage, quote unquote. But even then, like, Crash was struggling. So, like, only used in very, very, very niche content, even at her prime. So, she needs a Reforge, and I don't know how strong her Reforge is. To be decided. Okay, Demolia. Demolia is an Endura who can block 2, and she's the cheapest. So if you're looking for a very cheap Endura to like raise, Demolia is your best bet. Just a B rank Endura who can tank things and heal a little bit. Like, sure, if you need Endura who can block 2, Demolia is a healer who can block 2. Next up is Demon. Demon is a Endura who can block 2. And if you need an Endura who can block 2, congratulations. Demon is an Endura who can block 2. His shields are, who cares? And he's kind of just standing there like all these other Enduras. Now, there is some niche content where if you have a very high shackled demon, you can participate in a team called Shield Stack, which is a very moldy team that requires you to cast Demon's ultimate once every 11 seconds on the dot of 11 seconds. If you cast that 9 seconds, you're hurting yourself. You need to cast Demon's ultimate exactly every 11 seconds. And that's... it's not fun to play around. And even if you do like playing around it, you need a very high invested demon. I'm talking like an S4 demon. So for most people, if you're a fan category, just because he's an Endura who can block 2, if you're a whale, then you guys already know what Demon's capable of. He's somewhere in like the genuinely too powerful tier for the very niche content that he can see play in Shield Stack. Shield Stack needs time for Demon to stack his shields, and you also have to maul and again cast his ultimate every 11 seconds, and that's just really annoying to play around, and it's not fun. It's not fun in the slightest. Darren, oh Darren, you struggle. Worse than Koklik. When Darren came out, she was our best burst damage option, but even then, like, you could tell the writing was on the wall. She would use her ECB, and it would almost kill a BFL boss. Like, she would use it 3 times. She would crit on all 3 hits, and would almost kill a BFL boss. And you could just tell that if BFL bosses got any tankier, Darren would struggle more and more. And that's ultimately what ended up happening. Things got tankier, and Darren's burst damage became less and less relevant, and there's not really much that you can do to bolster her damage. You can't spam powers on her because all of her damage comes from the ECB, not her ultimate. You can't really use Last Stand because she has like the stacking requirements that she needs. And ultimately, like, you have to do a lot of work to get Darren online to get all of her stacks. And even when you get all of her stacks, the payoff of her ECB is just not high enough. Nowadays, people have like better AoEs. Like we look at Angel's core breaking. Angel core breaks in a 2x3, and Darren breaks in a 2x1. It's not very good. And like, honestly, when we're looking at burst damage, if I was to do like Angel ult, ECB ult, that does more damage than like Darren ult, ECB, ECB. Like Angel is just like a better version of Darren right now, honestly. But Darren's weak, and she has been weak for a long time. She's supposed to be like this consistency queen with like an ECB that can nuke something. But her consistency is too low, mainly because the area of effect is so small. And then her ECB doesn't nuke as hard as it needs to. So usable if you're a fan, but I wouldn't recommend Darren. She's fallen on hard times. Dolly got a reforge, and it makes her okay. But I mean, like, who's using Dolly? She attacks really fast. That's what Dolly does. She attacks really fast and in a like small AoE. And if you need somebody who attacks really small and really fast in a small AoE, like, go for it. Honestly, she's kind of similar to Arc, but I'm going to give Arc a significant edge, mainly because Arc 1 does true damage, and 2 is ranged. And Dolly can be a lot to play around. So I'm going to put Dolly like several leagues below Arc, but they kind of fill similar roles where they're trying to hit things at an AoE and like clear waves. So if you want Dolly, if you want a really fast wave clear, like she can attack really fast and clear waves, but I mean, there's better options than there always will be. Next up, looking at Donald. Donald is just a better version of Che. Che's claim to fame is that he can break a ton of cores in a nice AoE, and Donald's claim to fame is that he can break a lot of cores in a large AoE. The biggest thing that Donald has is like his ultimate into his ECB and ult again, so he can break 4 cores on like demand, and it's really nice. But Donald has a few problems. The first one is that he needs his S1 to do anything. Donald at S0 feels really, really bad. So get his first shackle, but even then, like, he doesn't have the oomph. He doesn't have any like supportive capabilities. He doesn't do anything outside of breaking those cores. The electrocution is not a very strong mechanic, and honestly, Donald on an electrocution team is a net negative because every other electrocution center is magical, and turning all of your magical damage into physical damage makes team building really difficult. So even if electrocution was a dedicated team, Donald would struggle to fit in, which is weird because he's like the electrocution capstone, but you know, it is what it is. Ultimately, he's just a core breaker, and he's not really doing much outside of breaking those cores. So usable. He might actually be better than Darren. He's probably better than Darren, but I'm going to put him right next to Che just to kind of emphasize that like Che and Donald are almost exactly the same center. Like Donald is just the S-rank version of Che. Moving on to Dove. I'm actually going to put Dove in the off-meta category. Dove gives a lot of magic penetration. Like a lot of magic penetration. And she's an Endura who has supportive buffs. She increases your damage by a ton. And it's kind of like the same thing with Cabernet, where, again, Cabernet's attack boost is applied before defenses, and that makes it really strong because you're increasing the damage more than what's stated by, right? A 30% attack boost gives you more damage than 30% because armor's flat reduction, so you're applying it before defenses rather than after defenses, and that's a big deal. Does magic penetration behaves in a similar way, where if you reduce the target's magic resist by 100, you end up doing more than 100 damage. Right? It's a very large percentage of damage that you're going to get out of Dove. So, magic penetration, good. Off meta, use her on a magic team if you want some extra core breaking, if you want some armor penetration. Like anytime that you would use Hecate, you can also use Dove. Dove is actually really, really good. Like really solid center. Okay, next up is Drea. We have to make a new category. I'm going to say better than Umber Core, probably weaker than the new weak spot. That's my preemptive sort of category here. So this is A's favorites. And this time it's the Bleed team. Bleed team is incredible. It composes of 5 people, and you need all 5 people. Don't go for 4. Don't go for 3. Go for all 5. You can get 3 of them out of one of the gameplay stores. You spend materials that you earned in game to unlock them. I can't find the other 2 members. Where's Pepper? Where's Jasmine? Where's Sumeri? Where are these people at? Where do they exist? I know it's in alphabetical order, but my brain is failing me. Let me find. There's Jasmine. Okay. Jasmine's probably the best on the Bleed team, but Drea's the capstone, so I'm going to put Drea above Jasmine. And then we also need Sumeri. There she is. Sumeri is really good, not as good as Levy. And then we have Pepper, who is on the team because she has Bleed. So the way the Bleed team works, you need all 5 of these centers. These last 3 you can get out of the one of the gameplay stores for free. It just takes, in-game resources. And the way this works is that each and every single one of these 5 members gets stronger for each bleed the target has. And each one of these centers applies a separate bleed. So if you have 4 people here, you can only apply 4 bleeds. If you have 5 people here, you can apply 5 bleeds. And Drea is going to get stronger for every bleed on the target. So if you, like, a 4 bleed Drea is not anywhere close to as strong as a 5 bleed Drea. And that same thing is said for each and every member, right? A 5 bleed Jasmine is really strong. A 5 bleed Levy is really strong. A 5 bleed Sumeri is really strong. A 5 bleed Pepper is good. And they each have their own role or their own way of increasing the team's damage, but they're all increasing their team's damage based on the number of bleeds the target has. So ultimately, you need all 5 of these. Make sure that you hit Levy's ultimate first, because Levy's ultimate is a damage amp. Use Jasmine and Sumeri to core break. Pepper is here to reduce their defense, and then Drea does all of the damage. Drea takes all of those bleed stacks and converts it into just straight raw damage. And she can also copy the bleeds and spread them across the entire map for wave clear if you need a wave clear. It's a really strong team that's really flexible and able to take down a lot of challenges at a very easy brain dead sort of playstyle. You just sort of have all the bleed members attack the same target, and if they're all attacking the same target, that target will bleed. And once they're bleeding, you just core break them, activate Levy's ultimate, and then spam Drea, and you win. Core break, Levy ult, Drea ult. You win. Congratulations. Use Drea's ECB to copy the bleeds and spread them to the entire map if you need to wave clear. And Bleed team is just a very solid, straightforward answer that does more damage than it should, honestly, for how easy this team is to play. Very, very good setup. Duo, I'm going to put her in the off-meta category right above Ariel. Duo is a healer, so all healers are going to go either in meta or off-meta. But the thing that gives Duo some sauce is that she has a revive. It's a 30-second cooldown, so you can't really abuse it too much, but you do get 1 slime revive to do some fancy tricks. And I didn't talk about him with Cassian, but I'm going to talk about him here with Duo. Revives have some fancy tricks. The first one is that when you revive a center, they are revived with full SP. Or I should say their original SP, right? Like if you revive Adela starts the fight with 0 SP. You revive her, she's going to have 0 SP when she's revived. Okay, it doesn't matter how much SP Adela had when she fell. It matters how much SP she has when the fight started. Same thing is true with centers like Koklik. Koklik starts the battle with full energy. So if you use Koklik ECB twice, and then Koklik falls over, and you use Dual Row or Cassian to revive Koklik, Koklik will be revived with full SP again. So you can cheat out Koklik's flowers really fast with like ECB, defeat your own Koklik with Dual Row, revive Koklik, and then ECB. And you can get 4 flowers in the first second of a BFL match. And it's good utility that doesn't get abused all that much because, I mean, it's usually better just to buff damage rather than cheat out energy in this weird abstract way. But this also works for other centers like Oak Casket. We haven't gotten to her yet, but Oak Casket starts with full energy. Anybody who starts with full energy really can be abused in this way, and it's very powerful. It also makes Crime Brands proc a second time. So if you have like Immolation Ignition, little sprites that give SP on the map, you can cheat out 4 Immolation Ignitions rather than 2 Immolation Ignitions. So there's some sauce that you can play with the revives, but ultimately Dual Row is a healer. If you have her S4 and you're a whale who speedruns, specifically speedruns, with like the stop play spreadsheet timing stuff, I mean like actual max score chasing in BFL, then she's up here in the genuinely too powerful tier. And for players who know what they're doing and who are watching all the YouTube videos and like sharing spreadsheets, and like sure, genuinely too powerful. But for most players, like most players are not using her on this like super high shackle whale farming max score clearing stuff. It's not realistic for the average player to even consider that. So most players are going to be using her in an off meta sense where she has like a little bit of wave clear maybe, but for the most part she's a healer that can revive. Okay, Doo-Doo. I should put her in like the off meta tier. I'm going to. You know what? I'm going to say better than Anne. Doo-Doo is a healer, and she also has this really, really, really roundabout way of buffing your attack. But the attack buffs are really annoying to play around, and I would not recommend it. I would not recommend it. But she's a healer, so she's going to be in the off-meta tier anyways, and her attack buffs are pretty solid. Like, attack buffs are good. We talked about it a lot when we talked about Cabernet. We talked about it a lot when we talked about Dove. Like, attack buffs are good. And Doo-Doo gives those attack buffs. And it should be really good, but it's so obnoxious to play around that it's limiting her to the off-meta tier. Dual Row can be better than off-meta, but the fact that she's so awkward to play around, I'm limiting her to off-meta. All right, next up is Echo. Echo is usable. She's actually pretty good. I'm going to say better than Darren. That's right, better than Darren. She kind of operates... She both does damage, she debuffs, and she crowd controls. So she has like this jack of all trades kind of identity, and she does it decently well. Like the damage buffs are decent, the damage is good, and the crowd control is exceptional. The thing is, crowd control isn't really that important in Path of Nowhere because most of the time your focus is how much damage can you do, right? Path of Nowhere is what I would consider a tower offense game, where it's really like how offensive can you be. And Echo kind of sits in this category where she's more of a tower defense center, where she is stopping the enemies from doing what they want to do and, like, you know, doing some damage and doing some debuffing to like keep her useful. But her big shining star is the fact that she disrupts the enemies so much. And disruption is much more important when we're talking about defense rather than offense. So Echo's good, and she can be used in like offensive capabilities, but for the most part, you're going to be using her with like Lisa, you're going to use her with Lamia, you're going to use her with Kelvin, and you're going to use this like slow burn team where you're just slowly whittling down your opponents. And it ends up being pretty good. In fact, you know what? I am going to make a new tier right below off meta, add a row below. And I'm going to say, like, niche. And then I'm going to call this niche category the slow team. slow debuffing team. I don't know what to call it. Slow debuff team. YouTube does, or not YouTube. Google doesn't like me typing the word debuff. Let me just add the dictionary. Debuff. Slow debuff team. And this is going to comprise of Echo. It's going to comprise of Lisa, wherever Lisa is. Lisa. Labyrinth. So Lisa should be around here somewhere. Yeah, Lisa. These two stop the enemy from moving, and then you're going to have Lamia, who does all the damage. So the way this works is that in like harder content, where waves are actually threatening, I'm talking like EX stages, then Echo and Lisa ensure that the enemies don't get to play the game, and while they don't get to play the game, they slowly fall over to, or succumb to Lamia's neurotoxin. And Lamia, she applies like a damage over time effect that lasts for the entire stage. But, you know, most opponents don't really care if they have the dot defect on them. Like, it's better just to, like, to defeat them with, like, bleed or weak spot or something else. But Lamia's good niche here is that if there's, like, 30 targets, she can apply that dot to each of those 30 targets, and then she can run away. She doesn't have to participate. She can just be on the other side of the map, and they slowly are going to fall over to that neurotoxin. So if you can get neurotoxin on somebody and then keep them stuck in one place, they're going to fall over. It's going to take some time, right? You're going to be there for a while. But if you can get the neurotoxin on them and like slow them, because Lamia also has slows, she also has roots of her own, and then combine those slows and roots with the slows, stuns, and roots that Echo has, and you combine it with the slows and roots that Lisa has, like the enemies don't get to move, and they will fall over to Lamia. It's a niche team, and you're going to use it like once every decade, but it's pretty good at what it does. And on that same vein, I'm also going to throw Kelvin into the mix, wherever my K's are. Kelvin. She kind of operates in the same way. She helps CC the opponents, make sure that they don't get a chance to move. She kind of helps keep them in one place so that they slowly succumb to Lamia. And I'm sure there's others that can fit in this category, like Luvia pairs pretty well with Lamia, so you're probably going to see Luvia in this category as well. But I want to keep it here just because like the core identity of this niche, super niche, slow debuff team is that you're keeping all the enemies stuck in one place and you're letting them succumb to Lamia's neurotoxin. That's like the focus of the team. So if you're doing that, like congratulations, it's actually pretty good for the content where like you're allowed to be slow. If you're allowed to be slow, it's good. But you know, you got to be allowed to be slow. Okay, next up is Irene. Irene better than Darren. Man, her SP cost is high. 40 SP cost is rough. But she used to be really good because she was flexible. And there's a BFL buff that halved her SP cost, and it was a 20 SP cost, and there's no other centers in the game, so like you always saw the Irene buff, and she was always like the super carry for BFL. You never see the Irene buff anymore, and if you do see the Irene buff, she's actually one of the best centers in the game. But God, it's so hard to play around her when her SP cost is at 40. She does give Chief energy, so she's really good on longer stage. She's really good with like shield stacking. If you need like Chief energy income, like Irene's actually still pretty good. And there's a lot of flexibility that she has. You can use her as a burst damage. You can use her as a wave clear. You can use her as a core breaker. You can use her to set up a billion mines in the background for you to use later. Like she's flexible. And everything says that Irene should be really good, except her SP cost is at 40. So she needs help. She's one of the ones waiting for her reforge, and I think she's going to get her reforge pretty soon. But there's no ETA on it yet. It hasn't been announced, not even on the like CN servers. So usable, and is going to be a god if her reforge decides to reduce her SP cost. But man, she needs a reduced SP cost. There's no getting around it. You need something not as high as 40. Okay, next up, we are looking at Reforged 11. Ooh, we are making a new category. We are going to add a row below. We are going to make this row red. And this is going to be more of Aizno's favorites. And this is the Reforged summons. So 11 is crazy. Her Reforge is one of the best in the game. One of the best mainly because Adela exists. And if Adela didn't exist, 11 would be the best Reforge in the game. She summons a bunch of fake hands and her SP cost is reduced so she can summon a ton of normal hands. And the damage that she gets from these fake and normal hands is just absurd. She was already good. She was still good even before her Reforge. And she honestly didn't need a Reforge, but they gave her one anyways. And she is just absurdly powerful. The general playstyle that you need with 11, and you need to do this if you're using 11. Buffing 11 does nothing. Like if you have 16 hands on the field and you buff 11, those 16 hands do not get buffed. What you need to do is that you need to buff 11, then make hands. The hands will inherit the buffs that 11 has when the hands are cast. So if you don't have any buffs and you cast a hand, that is a normal hand and will be forever. But if you buff 11 a billion times and then summon a hand, that hand will have a billion buffs and it will have those buffs forever, right? Like if those buffs expire on 11, the hand still has it. The hand snapshots the buffs and makes them permanent for that hand. So the way this works is that you buff 11 a billion times and then you start summoning hands. And 11 just absolutely slaughters the stage because she's absurd. She's really good. She has really good wave clear. She has really good boss damage. She has really good core breaking. She has really good AoE. She has really good burst damage. She has really good consistent damage. Like 11 is literally doing it all. 11 does everything you would ever want her to do. So if you want to play around Reforged 11, then I recommend her dedicated team with Eve. Eve helps buff all of the summons and provides fear for 11 to get more clap procs. Her hands will like clap on the ground whenever a fear is applied or attempted to be applied even. Like if the boss is immune to fear and you attempt to fear the boss, that still counts and those hands will still clap on the ground. So Eve buffs 11's damage and gives her more claps. And then we also have, where is she? Stargazer. Stargazer is also really good. I'm going to say weaker than 11. Stargazer's Reforge makes it so that anybody who takes damage from Stargazer's orbs take increased damage from all summons. So Stargazer debuffs the enemies, and Stargazer's debuffs make 11 hit harder. Stargazer can also be used on like the Aurum Secretum team. Stargazer can be used with Summer, like anything that has summons, Stargazer can be used with. But for the most part, people are using Stargazer with 11. For the most part. Now, I would also put Infer in this category. Infer is like the best fourth unit on the Reforged summon team, but I'm cautious about that because Infer is seeing so much play in so many other teams that she's not restricted to Reforged summons. Like Stargazer and 11 are pretty much restricted to this Reforged summon team, but Infer actually has some sauce in other teams. Infer is really good with the Shattered Blade team. She's really good with the Bleed team. She's really good with like Umbra Core teams. Infer is seeing a lot of play everywhere right now. So I'm going to go ahead and put her in Anzo's favorites, right above Cabernet. And right above Cabernet because, again, Cabernet's been more or less replaced by Shin, and Infer is able to see more play on these true damage teams than Cabernet. Cabernet's a 30% bonus damage for the true damage team, while Infer is a 40% bonus damage. And I should also point out that Cabernet's 30% attack boost is kind of diluted by other attack boosts. So if you have like 4 sources of attack boosts, the 5th source of attack boost is not as strong as the first one because you have diminishing returns and blah, 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 blah. You want to pull, the way the math works in Path to Nowhere, you want to pull buffs from different categories. It's one of the reasons why Reforged Summons are so good, because Reforged Summons are buffing magic damage, they're buffing summon damage, they're debuffing how much damage the enemies take. They're increasing your attack, they're increasing your damage dealt. There's damage from several different categories, and each category is making the other categories stronger. If you put all of your eggs in one category, that category gets diluted, and each one becomes weaker than the last. But if you spread 16 buffs across 16 categories, all 16 categories are getting stronger from the other 15. So you want to have different types of damage boosts, right? Like I'm going to go into a bit of a tangent here. When we're talking about Reforged Summer, we'll get to Reforged Summer later, wherever Reforged Summer is. When we talk about Reforged Summer, Summer has like physical penetration, she has physical damage, she has normal attack damage, and she has another type of damage. Like, and they all read the same thing. Like, what's the difference between 15% normal attack damage and 15% physical damage? It's the same thing, right? No, it is not. Because if you have 15% normal attack damage and 15% normal attack damage, your normal attack damage is now being increased by the 15% from the physical attack. The 15% physical attack is being buffed by 15% from the normal attack. The different categories of buffs are all helping each other. And that matters when we start talking about buff saturation and like diminishing returns and all this other stuff. The math favors you grabbing multipliers from different wheelhouses. And what we're seeing more and more as like time goes by is Path Nowhere has realized that attack buffs like Cabernet are really strong. So they're finding more ways to hand out attack buffs. Like Graves hands out a ton of attack buffs. The Shattered Blade team has some attack buffs built into it. When we're talking about Shin is handing out a ton of attack buffs. And if we're stacking too many attack buffs, we are going to reach this period of diminishing returns. That Infer kind of circumnavigates because Infer is applying a damage buff and not an attack buff. And we're finding more and more that this damage buff is more useful than the more generic attack buff. And also, Infer breaks 2 cores and works better on true damage teams. So what I'm trying to say, Infer's really good because math. That's right. Our favorite sculptor is a math wizard. Okay. Next up is EMP. EMP, if you're a fan, like better than Dolly, I guess. EMP, she's like the baby's first archer. She has a really long range, which is nice for early story. When you upgrade her, when she defeats an enemy, her ultimate is reset. And that's really useful for early game. The problem is that the deeper you get into the game, the more HP enemies have, and the less often you're going to hit these nice juicy one-shots that lets EMP reset. And because EMP struggles to get those resets, she struggles to find her niche. Like that's really all EMP is doing, is getting like those one-shot resets. And if you can't get the one-shot reset, like what are you doing? So eventually EMP falls off real hard. Like she's really good and then she reaches like this cliff and she just walks right off of it. Very EMP thing to do, and it's how she feels in the gameplay. You're just going to reach a point where like EMP no longer works. Eddie, Reforged Eddie. Reforged Eddie. Yeah, I'm going to make another tier. Let's add a row below. We're having a lot of Anzo's favorites. Anzo has a lot of favorites. This is the Arcane Crit team. Okay, so we're going to talk about this in the context of Arcane Crit, because that's where most Eddies are going to see play. Reforged Eddie is a strong damage dealer who has a lot of caveats that make her very awkward to target. She has this fake AoE, and I talk about fake AoEs a lot. I hate the fake AoEs. Eddie's ultimate looks like it's a 3x3, but it's 3x3 targeting while all the damage is single target. but it only targets people inside of that 3x3. It's really annoying because it turns into like an RNG mess. Or if you have like a boss and a wave stacked on top of each other and you cast Eddie's ultimate, you can't just say, oh, I want to hit the boss, because you have to target the boss and the wave, and the individual missiles are going to choose either the boss or the wave. You can't hit both. Even though the ability looks like it'll hit both, and it does hit both, it only hits both because you're splitting your damage against multiple targets, not because you're actually doing more damage. So it's an entirely single target damage center that looks like it's AoE. It's really annoying when they do that. But Reforged Eddie is hitting so hard that doesn't really matter, and she's best on the Arcane Crit team. The Arcane Crit team, for a few reasons, they like it when centers, their damage dealers, hit multiple times, and Eddie hits a lot of times. And it's a strong alternative to blue, but I will say that Voltaire Blue, it's Voltaire Blue, not just blue, is just a stronger version of Eddie, right? Voltaire Blue's ultimate is cheaper, it has core break, it is actually a true AoE, not a fake AoE. She also has like the multi-hit variable. She can scale with attack speed better than Eddie can. She has better supportive buffs, in my opinion, than Eddie. Like, blue is just the stronger version of Eddie. But when we're talking about these two, we will always be talking about them in the context of Arcane Crit, because that is where they are the strongest. And Arcane Crit composes of 3 pieces. The first piece is Ying Ying. Ying Ying has a passive that lets her allied Arcanas crit. So this is blue, this is Eddie, because they are Arcanas. If Ying Ying is on the field, these two can now crit. And that's all Ying Ying does. Like, Ying Ying does have some like wave clear, some some core break with her ECB, some supplemental damage, but for the most part she's here because, like, hey, we can crit now. Hooray. And then we move on to Yugo, who came out at the same time as Ying Ying. Yugo, so just because Ying Ying lets these two crit doesn't mean they have any crit chance, right? Like, hooray, you can crit, but you have 0% crit chance. Congratulations. Yugo fixes that problem by providing them with the crit chance that they need. So use Ying Ying and Yugo to let these two crit and give them crit chance. And then we need to add in a source of crit damage, because what is crit chance if you don't have any crit damage? And you end up with this team where you, let me move Eddie out of the frame for a second. You end up with this team where you have an Arcana that can now crit, has crit chance and crit damage. And that one Arcana, blue or Reforged Eddie, is now hitting really, really hard. They can crit with crit chance, with crit damage, right? That's how this works. And then you compare this with usually LL. LL is the next best bet because it increases the skill damage of your Arcana and feeds your Arcana some SP so they can cast more of their Arcana ults. Very strong. Use LL in this team comp. You can finish it off with another supportive Arcana. Well, let's go ahead and talk about supportive Arcanas real quick. I'm going to throw Eddie back up here. There are a few supportive Arcanas. They are catalysts hidden as Arcanas. I'm talking about Millie, Raven, and Ikate. And these 3 are more or less functionally the same, but they are all Arcanas, and they all increase the amount of magic damage their enemies take, right? They all do the same thing. Like, these 3 are interchangeable. Ikate breaks 2 cores and increases the amount of magic damage her enemies take. Raven breaks 2 cores and increases the amount of magic damage her enemies take. Millie breaks 2 cores and increases the amount of magic damage her enemies take. They're literally the same center in a different flavor. You either have like the yellow flavor, the green flavor, or the blue flavor, right? They do the same thing. And while Millie is the best and Raven's the second best and Ikate is the third best, like, for the most part, like, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. Honestly, like, it's so hard to tell the difference between these 3 that it's not really worth talking about. So when we talk about these 3, they are best on the Arcane Crit team, right? If you just throw Millie up here with LL, like, congratulations, that team is super strong. And that's for a few reasons. The first reason is that Yugo gets stronger when she has 3 Arcanas on her team. So you're always going to have 2, right? Your DPS unit and Yin Yang. Your supportive one is usually going to be your 3rd, right? So Millie into this team completes Yugo's setup, and Millie is just good on the team in general. Same thing with Raven and Hecate. Raven is just good on this team in general, and it makes Yugo stronger. Hecate is just good on this team in general, and it makes Yugo stronger. So I would use one of these 3 supportive Arcanas to go with the Arcane Crit team, but you don't have to. And I would recommend LL here, but you don't have to. You can use Cabernet, you can use Shen, you can use whoever you want. Like, as long as they are providing damage buffs to blue, that's what matters. Anybody who can provide damage buffs to blue, that's who you want to go for. And again, bonus points if you use one of these 3 Arcanas from this meta category. These 3 are insane. They work on all magic damage teams. Very strong, very meta. They're going to be at the top of the meta. I don't think there's anybody that's going to surpass these 3. They don't have like a necessary dedicated home, but again, you can put Millie up here on the Reforged Summon teams, and you can put Millie down here on the Arcane Crit team. Like, as long as it's a magic damage team, you can put Millie, Raven, or Hecate on that team and achieve phenomenal results. They just don't necessarily have a home, right? Like, if you're going to replace, like, if you have these 4 and then like 3 others and you're deciding who you're going to drop, it's probably going to be the supportive Arcana who gets dropped first. But if you're looking for like a 6th member, it's always going to be like Millie, Raven, or Hecate. They're just so good. So with all that being said, choose either Blue or Eddie, and then pair him with these 3, and then like LL, Shin, Millie, Raven, Hecate, something like that. And this team is incredible. That being said, I do want to take Jelena, and I want to yoink her up into Anzo's favorites, probably above Enfer, because Jelena sees play on more than just Arcane Crit. Jelena can see play with Shattered Blade, she can see play with Adela, she can see play with Bai Yi, she can see play with Weak Spot. Like, Jelena is seen on all content where crit is a capability. And even on some non-crit teams, Jelena is still good. She provides attack buffs to a single target. So if there's a center who you're just like, I just want you to have more attack, you can just pair them together, and Jelena will give them more attack. It's not as efficient as other sources of attack, but it's good, right? Like, Jelena with Augustus is good. Jelena with Necresta Hela is good. Jelena with 11 is good. Like, if you want to throw on like a 6th buff onto Reforged 11 before she throws out her hands, yeah, give her the raindrop and then use Jelena's ECB. And 11 will have like fully decked out hands to summon. It's really strong, really flexible, and it works, again, for crit and non-crit characters, but I mostly recommend her on the crit setups because the non-crit setups are kind of unnatural, and you're usually better off with, on non-crit setups, you're usually better off with Enfer or Cabernet because they can provide core breaking as well, right? Like, Jelena doesn't do anything besides just pure numbers, where Enfer and Cabernet can support in core breaking as well. So Jelena has a lot of flexibility and can be used all over the place, but she's best on teams that can crit. So I'm putting her in Anzo's favorites. Again, she's really good on Weak Spot. She's really good with Bai Yi and Umber Core. She's really good with Arcane Crit. She can be seen in so many places that I'm just putting her in the Anzo's favorites because she's more flexible than just these dedicated team slots would suggest. Okay, next up we have Eureka. Eureka's usable. The best way that I can describe Eureka is that she is a worse version of Shruma. So if you ever want to use Eureka, consider Shruma instead. Because Shruma might actually be meta. Shruma's really good. I don't know how to play this character, honestly, but I've seen so much Shruma just absolutely shred like impossible situations. Like, actually better than S ranks. Shruma is insanely powerful. But I'm gonna put her in off meta. I might annoy people with this placement. If you're a Shruma knower and you've read the guides and you've watched the videos and you know how Shruma works, then sure, Shroom is probably much higher than this. If you don't read the 10-page guide and you didn't watch the 5-minute video, and you don't know how Shruma works, then she's probably like down here, right? Like it's very, very topsy-turvy twisty. Shruma is more complicated than she lets on. But if you know what you're doing, she absolutely shreds. So I'm going to put her in this off-meta tier. But if you know what you're doing, she's probably up here. And if you don't know what you're doing, she's probably down here. So Shruma, very flexible in her regard. But if there's ever a time where you're like, ooh, I want to use Eureka, just use Shruma. Shruma is just a better version of Eureka, just straight up. Okay, next up is Flora. Flora's good. I would say better than EMP. But worse than Dolly. No, better than Dolly because she works with Jelena. Yeah, I'm going to put Flora there. Flora, she's a reticle. She's cheap to raise, and she scales with crit. So there was a time where she was like one of the best centers to use. That was back when like non-Reforged Summer was good and like Priscilla was good. And it turns out that like Flora was also good. But she very quickly got outpaced when like the game became more ability focused rather than more auto attack focused. Like there was a time in Path to Nowhere's history where like Dolly, Flora, Priscilla, even like Mess were being used because their auto attacks hit hard. But as Path to Nowhere ages more and more, like auto attacks don't mean anything. And it's all about your ults, it's all about your abilities, it's all about how much burst damage you do, how big your AoE is, your core breaking, all of this stuff. And Flora just hasn't been able to keep up. That being said, you can support Flora rather well. It's very easy to buff Flora. Use like Lady Pearl to increase her normal attack damage and her attack speed. Use Jelena to give her crit damage. Use like Owo or Yugo to give her more crit chance. And like Flora can be an absolute beast, but Flora's always going to have to beat the accusation of, oh, my ultimate doesn't do anything, right? There's no instant payoff. Like if I click Angel ult, the target dies. If I click Flora ults, I go through a small animation and then I start doing more damage, but I'm not like defeating an enemy immediately. And that slow nature that like naturally comes with auto attacks versus skills, it slows Flora down a lot. She's also a B rank, and you know, she doesn't have the stats of an S rank. I mean, she has like a play pattern that's better than some S ranks, but she doesn't have the stats, right? Next up is Garofano. Garofano was weak down here and usable if you're a fan. Yeah, I'm going to put her down here, worse than Enduras. There's this idea that Garofano is supposed to work on the weak spot team, but honestly, Garofano does nothing for the weak spot team. And if there's ever a time where you're like, ooh, I want to use Garofano inside of the weak spot team, it's probably better if you just like throw Lady Pearl on there, or if you throw Cabernet on there, or if you throw Infer on there, or if you throw Jelena on there. Like any of these, like, or yeah, even Necresta Hella, like any of these generic Anzo's favorite characters are just going to do the job better than Garofano, even inside of weak spot. So there's, even in Garofano's own niche, she is replaced by stronger alternatives. And outside of Garofano's niche, she's really, really weak. So I guess she is usable on weak spot, but again, like, you're better off using the generic alternatives compared to just Garofano. Okay, next up is Gekabajin. Gekabajin is much better than people give her credit for, but she is still just a core breaker. And I'm going to say that she's worse than Che. Garofano can break up to 4 cores. So her Mania Intensify, her P2, it changes her core break from 1 to 2, and her ultimate can be stacked 2 times. This means if your Gekabajin is allowed to just sit back and smack a boss for 20 years, like in TOA, then your Gekabajin can stack her ultimate twice, and when the boss decides to reveal her cores, she can break 4 of them. And she doesn't need to use her ECB, she doesn't need to use any limited resources, she just breaks 4 cores and says, smell you later, kid. And if you need to break 4 cores consistently, like in TOA, on low core break teams, then Gekabajin is very good. But the problem is that Gekabajin's ultimate recovery is based on her auto attacks, and that really slows her use cases, because she does need a central target to keep on bashing. And usually when you're fighting a single target, It's better if they have like a real source of damage amp, like Raven or Infer, or like Angel does more burst damage. Like there's so many targets that increase the damage and do more than just core breaking, while Gekabajin is really just here for core breaking. And it's a niche situation in which you would use her. Okay, Hamel. Hamel is going into the off-meta category. Better than Ariel, worse than Reforged Ariel. So I'm going to just put her behind Ariel. She's a healer, AoE healer. Great. Like, congratulations. If you need healing, Hamel will heal. But she doesn't really do anything outside of healing. So until she's able to like damage buff or do something unique, do something interesting, she's going to be behind the rest of the pack, because other healers can heal and have some sauce, and she's really just healing. So it's, yeah, off meta, it's good, but you know, there's other alternatives. Hamel's easily replaced, and there are some replacements that are just better than Hamel. So I don't know anything about this character, to be decided. I don't even know this character's name. What is this character's name? I know I have some people listening and not actually watching, so I'm going to find her name. It is Helga. Helga. I don't know what Helga does. I have not read her kit, so couldn't tell you. To be decided. Regular Hela is usable, and she is going right above the Enduras. I mean, she's just a ball of stats that can heal herself and is tanky. So if you need like a ball of stats that can heal herself and is tanky, then like sure, Reforged base Hela works. But I mean, she doesn't block 2, so the Enduras are probably better. But I don't know. She's a body. She doesn't do anything. She's just a body that can soak up damage. If you need a body that soaks up damage, then you can use Reforged Hela. Sure, it works. If you're a fan, it's usable, but it's not doing anything. It's just a body soaking damage. Okay, next up is Hestia. Oh, I am going to... Okay, so I'm going to do it. I'm going to make a burn team setup. Burn team row. This is going to be off-meta burn team. Burn team is really weak right now. And I'm hesitant to put the burn team in the same category because honestly, the burn team is just Thistle. Like that's really what it is. It's just Thistle. Thistle is insane. Thistle can work everywhere. Like Thistle's actually up here in like the meta category. Like Thistle's really good. So this is going to come with several caveats. Thistle herself, just by herself, breaks 2 cores, applies a 20% attack boost, is really, really strong. She's like a baby Infer, and a baby Infer is more than enough to be meta tier. I wouldn't go as far as to say Anzo's favorites, because like it's missing a bit of flair. It needs a little bit more punch. I'm not even sure if that's true, honestly. Like, Thistle's so good, she might be Anzo's favorite. She might be up here. It's tough to say, man. Thistle's really good. Thistle's really good. But she's even better in the burn team. So beyond just what Thistle does, generally, she also makes burn units hit even harder. And if you're using Hestia is off meta. She's actually really good. She's a really good wave clear center. If you need to clear waves, like Hestia will do it. But she needs Thistle to be around to be useful. And if you don't have Thistle, then Hestia is not doing anything. And in the same regard, Yao is okay. Yao has fallen on some real hard times. And same problem as Darren, right? Darren was nuking people with her ECB, and when she was able to kill a BFL boss with her ECB, she was broken. But then the bosses got more health, and she couldn't defeat a BFL boss, and now she doesn't do anything. Like, the enemies are just too tanky. Same thing with Yao. Enemies are tankier now, and Yao doesn't have the punch to defeat the enemies. And her whole idea is that she's sacrificing her team members one by one to defeat the enemies faster than she defeats her own team. And nowadays, she's defeating her own team faster than she's defeating the enemy. So it doesn't work anymore. Like, there's very few situations in which trading your team members for the boss's HP bar works, because bosses just have too much HP and it's not worth trading your team members. So Yao's in a rough spot right now. And I'm splitting the team up. I was splitting them up. Thistle, I've convinced myself, Anzo's favorites. Thistle is incredible, and you guys will not convince me otherwise. Thistle is insane. She breaks 2 cores. She gives a 20% attack boost to a single character for 12 seconds, and that doesn't require SP. And it's just so good. 20% attack boost. It's like a really strong amount, and she's core breaking all the time, and she's just so good, and she's able to be used on every single team, and she's really good, guys. You can use Thistle here to increase 11's summons damage and break cores. You can put Thistle in here to do more damage with Bianca and break cores. You can put Thistle in here to do more damage with Drea and break cores. You can put Thistle in here to make Bai or Zero do more damage, but you probably don't want to break cores because then she'd be stealing cores from your Umbras, so actually this isn't that good of a combination. But you can put Thistle down here to make Blue stronger and break cores. And you can put Thistle down here or down here or down here. You can put Thistle anywhere. She's the jack of all trades that breaks 2 cores and applies an attack boost to somebody of your choosing. She is incredible. I recommend ECB3. A lot of her power comes from her ECB, so like use ECB3. But Thistle is incredible. And we're talking about Yao. Yao is awful. I'm going to put her in the usable tier nowadays. She just doesn't... Again, she's trading your teammates for the boss's HP bar. And nowadays, like, your teammates are worth more than a Yao ult. That's just what it comes down to. Teammates are now stronger than a Yao ult. And there was a time where Yao ultimate was stronger than her teammates, but that doesn't exist anymore. And because, like, she has to defeat her own centers to do burst damage, the tankier your enemies get, the less useful she is, to the point where she's not even off meta anymore. She's usable. But when we talk about Hestia, I do think Hestia is off meta. I think she's, right behind Angel. And now you do have to use, I want to be clear, you do have to use Hestia, you do have to use Yao with Thistle. It's the only reason why those two work, because Thistle boosts their damage by a ton because they're burn units, okay? That's how it works. But Hestia is really good as a wave clear option if you need to clear waves. Like, if you want to put Hestia into like an arcane crit team, then it works. If you want to put Hestia into like a reforged summon team to help with wave clear, it can work. But again, off meta, there are usually better options. It's usually better if like you just play smarter with your AoE when it comes to blue. It's usually better if you just play smarter with your AoE when it comes to reforged summons. Like, Magic teams have a way to clear waves without using Hestia. But if like the map is strangely structured, if there's enemies like in 4 corners and it's hard to get all the groupings together and hit the correct targets, then Hestia does have global damage options to clear the waves without needing to worry about, grouping. So Hestia does have some use case scenarios that makes her good. And you have to use her with Thistle, and Thistle's really good, so why would you not use her? And then Yao, Yao struggles for various reasons. Next up is Horo. Horo is a body that is worse than the Enduras. Same thing as Hela. Actually, you know what? Horo breaks a core. It doesn't matter that Horo breaks a core. Her SP cost is so high. She breaks a core, but her SP cost is so high, and she's just a body that sits there and soaks up damage and doesn't do anything else. So if you need a body that sits there and soaks up damage, use an Endura, because they do it better. But if you want to use Horo, sure, she's a knockoff Endura, sure. Ignis. There's this idea that Ignis is supposed to be part of the burn team, but she's so weak that it doesn't matter. Even on the burn team, she is useless. If you're a fan category, it's just not enough damage. The multipliers aren't there, the burn percentages aren't there. Like, everything that Ignis could be doing is ruined by how bad her numbers are. Her SP cost, her ult damage, the fact that she's doing auto attacks instead of having like an actual ability to cast, same thing as like Flora, and her burn percentages, like her numbers are just weak. So all the things that Ignis could be doing is just ruined by her low numbers. Okay, next up is Dr. Iron. Dr. Iron is close to failing to properly fulfill her own role. Is close to it. But she's here as a core breaker, and at least she breaks cores. So better than Ignis. I mean, she breaks cores. Nothing else matters. Like the electrocution doesn't matter. Like nothing that Iron does matters, but she breaks cores. So congratulations, you're usable. Next up is Jane. Jane is really good. I'm going to say off meta, slightly worse than Hestia. And she's just here for wave clear. If you need a wave clear option, Jane is your girl. She's there to be used in ROTD, to be used in story, to be used in like Eternal Nightmare, anywhere where like you want to clear waves consistently and often. Jane is great for it. You can't bring her into BFL, but again, like you put Jane on the field, she plays herself and she's going to clear waves, and you can kind of forget about it. Very good center, very still off meta because the more active solutions are going to be better. But if you want a passive solution to waves, Jane is a great passive solution to waves. Very good for like my more casual players. Very, very good. I use her as often as I can, and it's very fun in like the more laid back stages. Speaking of Jane, she is very close to Pine. Let me find Pine in this mess. Pine. Pine is very similar to Jane, where she's like a wave clear option. She's a little bit more active. You do have to cast her ult manually, but Pine also breaks cores, and she breaks cores of every single enemy that enters her ultimate's range. So she like deploys this little drone. That drone occupies a 3x3 area. And anybody who walks in that 3x3 area takes a burst of damage and loses a core. And that's important because if we're talking like ROTD and something, and there's like a wave of like 5 people coming out of a spawn, they are all, each and every one of those 5 are going to spawn, immediately be inside of Pine's drone. They will all lose a core, get core broken, and probably be defeated by the burst damage. So Pine is just like an aura farming core breaker that does a really good job. And like, again, this more wave based content. If there's 1,000 enemies running at you, each one of them has a core and you have to core break them to win, Pine's going to do it. Like Pine and Labyrinth, those are your 2 who are going to be able to break like the 1,000 cores that are coming at you and be able to do it infinitely. Seto might be able to do it infinitely too if the groupings are good enough. If she's able to get 5 cores in each cast, and she will just sit there and cast her ult on repeat until she's breaking 1,000 cores. But Seto's more grouping reliance, whereas Pine can just sit there. Their grouping doesn't matter. It's just their pathing that matters. And Labyrinth just does it for free. So Pine's really good laid back, semi-passive option for story, ROTD, mania training, all these other things. Very good casual wave clear option. Next up is Joan. Joan, man, I kind of want to put her in off meta. She debuffs well, right? Like how strong are Joan's debuffs? I forget. It's been so long since I've used Joan, but she's good. I'm actually live looking up numbers because this is ultimately what's going to decide it. Because I don't remember exactly what her numbers are, but what are her numbers? Where does it say the numbers at? Am I going crazy? Okay, this is taking me too long to read. Oh, wait. Special mark that reduces magic resist by 5% for 10 seconds. That can stack up to 6 times. So 30% magic penetration if she's able to stack it enough. Pretty good. Usable. I'm not gonna go as far as to say off meta, but I will say usable. And I think she's at the top of this tier. Yeah, she's so close to being off meta. Like, she has wave clear. She has like the corpse explosion, where if enemies are being defeated on top of the boss, those enemies will explode and do damage to the boss. So the corpse explosion mechanic is actually pretty favorable if the waves and the boss overlap. And Joan is, while providing this wave clear, while providing her own damage, while providing this corpse explosion mechanic, she's also providing magic penetration. Well, magic resist shred, but you know, same difference. And it turns out that it's a really comprehensive kit. And if this was on a center with the stats of an S rank, it would absolutely be Anzo's favorites. But this really strong versatile kit is stuck on a center who has the stats of a B rank, and that still hurts her. So I'm going to say at the top of usable, almost off meta, almost, very close. But I don't think she has quite all the sauce that she needs. Speaking of corpse explosions, let's just jump right into Langley. Langley is the same thing where she's talking about corpse explosions. If you're fighting a wave and that wave happens to be defeated on top of the boss, that wave will explode and deal damage to the boss. It's a great time. But Langley doesn't do anything. There used to be a time where she had really consistent auto attacks, and her really consistent auto attacks were enough. But nowadays, like the one core break, and even though like she has like an AoE, if she casts her AoE and targets like 5 enemies that have cores, she'll still only break 1 core on 1 enemy. Well, I can't even say she's an AoE core breaker because she's a single target core breaker. Most of her damage is single target. I understand that she can like spread her mark to multiple people and do slow burn damage to like the entire team, similar to like Lamia with her neurotoxin. But Langley is just, she's too slow, and the damage is low. She's low and slow. The kit is well designed, but Langley is waiting for a reforge, in all honesty. And I'm going to say that she is better than EMP. But Langley needs help. She has some sauce, but it's too slow, and the numbers are too low. So, almost off meta. Almost off meta. When Langley gets a reforge, she's going to be insane. I don't know what they're going to do with her, but doing anything with Langley is going to make her insane because she has a really good, well-designed kit. It's just that the numbers are low. She doesn't do the AoE properly, and it's slow because she has to rely on her auto attacks rather than like casting an ability or an ECB, right? She doesn't have any way to like jump the gun. She has to play it really slow with really low numbers. Okay, next up, we are talking about Kawakawa. Kawakawa is an Endura who can block 2, and if you need an Endura who can block 2, then congratulations, you have Kawakawa. Kawakawa is an Endura who can block 2, and that's pretty much all he does. He does have some like niche healing, but like who cares about the healing? He's an Endura who blocks 2, and if you want an Endura, if you need to block 2, Kawakawa is an option. Next up is KK. Everything I just said about Kawakawa can also be said about KK. She's an Endura who can block 2 and nothing else matters. She is just a body blocking 2 people. If you need an Endura, and if you need to block 2, congratulations, you have KK. If you haven't noticed, there is a large section here that is just Enduras who can block 2, because it really doesn't matter which Endura you use, you just need to be able to have a body that can block 2. Pick your favorite, they all work. Corrin is off meta. She's at the top of off meta, and she will forever be at the top of off meta. Corrin shreds armor. Corrin can do boss damage if she animation cancels. Corrin can wave clear. Corrin is like a jack of all trades. She's a damage amplifying, wave clear, boss shredding powerhouse. And you should watch my Corrin video. It's one of my favorite videos on the channel, the Corrin Guide. I am in love with this center and her kit. It's incredible, comprehensive. The only fault that Corrin has is that she doesn't have a dedicated team. If Corrin had a dedicated team, if she had like a bleed team, if she had like a weak spot team, if she had like an Umbra core team, or if she had a team, then she would absolutely be like Anzo's favorites. And she's so close to being Anzo's favorites. And you know what? Corrin might actually be meta. She might actually be meta. But I'm going to put her off meta. if you decide to bust out the corn, you're not going to be disappointed. But it's... Man, I want to put her in meta so bad. I really do. I really do want to put her in meta. But I'm going to resist putting her in meta, mainly because she does need her S1. And realistically, at least ECB2. Like, she is a bit of a higher investment than other centers. And the 20 SP cost, like, not starting with her ultimate can be challenging if you need to wave clear early. Right, if you're having a wave clear, usually the wave clears want to they want to wave clear as soon as the stage starts. They start firing off and clear the waves as fast as they can. Corrin does have to wait for her 20 SP cost before she can start doing that, and that kind of slows her down a bit. So I am going to leave her in the off meta category. She does everything. Corrin does everything, but she needs help to do it all. And despite doing it all, she doesn't have a dedicated team. She doesn't have a place to call home, and it slows her down. She's difficult to play around. Watch the Corrin guide. I explain everything much better in the Corrin guide. It's very good. You should watch it. Okay, next up, it's one of my favorite videos on the channel. Like, seriously, go watch the Corrin guide. Next up is LL. LL is insane, and she is absolutely one of Anzo's favorites. She is almost genuinely too powerful. The only thing that keeps LL in check is that her damage buff is a skill damage buff and not like an attack buff or like an all damage buff. Like, she is limited to specifically skill damage. So like, while LL does see play in Shattered Blade, she's not buffing Shattered Blade's damage, because Shattered Blade does normal attack damage, not skill damage. So LL is, while providing Augustus with Shattered Blades, is not increasing Augustus's damage. LL, while she can give SP to Bianca, will not increase Bianca's damage. LL, while giving SP to like the Aurum Secretum team, the Aurum Secretum team does normal attack damage and is therefore not increasing their damage. But even then, even when she's not giving these people damage, you will see LL on these teams still, because energy like income is still really good. Like, at just being able to give SP out is good enough for LL. But what really makes LL so insane is that she gives that SP out while providing a skill damage boost. So if you use LL on a team that uses skill damage, then they will absolutely shred. LL is up here in Anzo's favorites, not in any of these dedicated teams, because LL is best in slot on the Bleed team, is best in slot on the Umbra Core team, is best in slot on the Arcane Crit team. She is best in slot on almost every single team. So LL is insane powerhouse. The SP income, the SP generation alone is enough, but she also hands out a skill damage boost that just makes her absolutely bonkers. So great center, one of Anzo's favorites for sure, even though her event was trash. That's right, I said it. Into the Blue was awful. Next up is Labyrinth. Labyrinth is going into the Anzo's favorites at the very, very, very bottom. Labyrinth breaks an infinite number of cores, and that's all she needs to do. That's it. She can break an infinite number of cores, and if you need to break an infinite number of cores, Labby can do it. But that's all she does. Actually, you know what? I think the times are kind of falling off. Again, we're getting more and more core breakers. And because we're getting more and more core breakers, we don't need Labyrinth as much. And her damage used to be really high, but it's falling off more and more. And the fact that she doesn't have any supportive opportunities, like all the other core breakers, core break while doing something else. And Labyrinth is just core breaking. But I'm actually moving... I've been thinking about this one for a while, right? Like, I've always put Labyrinth here because I'm like, she's always going to be at the bottom of Anzo's favorites. Like, she's always going to be like right here in this tier. But I think like we've reached a point of like core break saturation where there's just so many options when it comes to core breakers that Labyrinth is no longer like required. And I think she's just strong now. She's not she still is the infinite core break machine that she always has been. But there's just alternatives now, right? Like core breaking alternative that can break cores infinitely, core breaking alternative that can break cores infinitely. And we have like core breaking alternative that also buffs her team, core breaking alternatives that also buff their team, core breaking alternatives that also does insane damage. Umbra Core is a core breaking alternative that also does insane damage. Like, there's just so many odds when it comes to core breaking that Labyrinth isn't. Her niche is becoming smaller, and it used to be like it was a niche, but it was the biggest niche in the entire game. Labyrinth was used in like 90% of content. But now Labyrinth's niche, while still like incredibly good, it's only used in like 10% of content nowadays. Like, there's just other options that Labyrinth isn't seeing as widespread play, so I'm going to put her in the meta category, not the Anzo's favorites. Still very good center, but definitely drop her down a few pegs. Lady Pearl. Lady Pearl gets better and better with every patch. Lady Pearl increases normal attack damage, and it makes her best in slots on any team that does magic or that does normal attack damage. She's best in slot on the Shattered Blade team. She's best in slot with Adela. She's best in slot with Weak Spot. She's best in slot with the Aurum Secretum team. Like, Lady Pearl is just really strong because she increases normal attack damage, she breaks 2 cores, and she hands out 1 billion attack speed with her ECB. So, Lady Pearl's good. Like, really good. She gets better and better every time. If a character ever has normal attack written in their kit, Lady Pearl is stronger. And she's just going to keep getting stronger every time they print a character that says normal attack. So, congratulations, Lady Pearl. You are worse than LL, but better than everybody else. Okay, next up is Letta. Letta is a healer, and if you need a healer, then oh boy, does she heal. Congratulations. Off meta, that's where all the healers go. You're going to need one of these, but, I mean, there are some healers who do more than just heal. And Letta is just a healer who just heals. So, use one of the better healers, or use Letta. It doesn't really matter because they all heal, and you really just need one healer, so pick your favorite. Luminita is an Enduro who can block too. Another one of these situations where it really honestly doesn't matter. She's a body that blocks too. She's an Endura. If you need an Endura, if you need a body that blocks too, Luminita is your girl. You can use Luminita, or you can use one of any of the other Enduras who do the same exact thing. But like their ultimates, their kits, none of these abilities matter, honestly. It just matters that they're an Endura that blocks too. Like, their stats are all that matters. And they're all in the same category because their stats are good enough to make them usable if you're a fan, but they don't do anything interesting enough for them to stand out above the crowd. So they're all in this same band. Luvia Ray. Luvia Ray, I almost want to put her in this niche slow debuff team, but I'm not going to. She does perform really well with Luvia. Or Luvia performs really well with Lamia. These two are like a really good combo because Lamia's Neurotoxin procs Electrocution, and Luvia applies Electrocution at a very consistent rate. And I want to put her in this niche slow debuff team, but she's not mandatory on this team. In fact, this team is usually run without her. So I can't comfortably put her here. I might just put her down here anyways. I mean, she's either here in this niche team, or she's like down here, like with Langley, like above EMP. I think that's accurate for Luvia Ray. Luvia Ray used to be like one of the best centers in the game because we had like 0 magic damage options, and Luvia Ray was a solid A rank that everyone had access to do magic damage for BFL. And people would just animation cancel the bejesus out of her, and it would be enough to hit 240k, not much more than that. But like, again, as time goes on, like, Luvia Ray just falls off more and more. We have more dedicated teams. Even in Luvia's prime, she lost to the mages. There just weren't that many mages, so people were settling for Luvia Ray rather than like pulling for Raven. So it's she's good, but she has the normal attack in Crisis that like Langley has, that Flora has, that Dolly has, that Hella Reforge has. Like, they're all focused on their normal attacks, and focusing on your normal attacks usually isn't that good because it's better if you just have like consistent auto attacks at base, and then you have an ultimate or an ECB that can give you some oomph. But Luvia Ray doesn't have that oomph. She's just like a consistent slow burn character, and I'm gonna put her right below Langley. I think that's the most accurate placement for Luvia Ray. But if you want to use her in the slow debuff team, like she works in the slow debuff team too. Okay, I'm skipping the rest of this song, even though it's only like 20 seconds left. I'm skipping this song too. We're gonna get into some like real actual music. Hold on. Where's my real actual music? I'm not even sure if you guys can hear the music. It's pretty loud on my end, but okay. Real actual music. Turn shuffle off. We're just listening to Diddy Night Song now. Okay, next up is Lynn. Lynn has been a mess, and she has always been a mess. There used to be a team that was very similar to this niche team here, where it was Lamia Luvia, for the reasons that we just talked about. Lamia Luvia. Lamia applies, Luvia applies electrocution. Lamia detonates the electrocution, ends up doing a lot of damage. And then you would include Lynn, because Lynn could increase Luvia's crit damage. We didn't have Jelena yet, so Lynn was like the best crit damage buffer in the game, even if she was like awkward as hell to use. And then you use Labyrinth, because none of these people broke cores very well. You had to use Labyrinth to break the cores appropriately. And then because none of these characters really care about their ultimate, you would run Last Stand to increase the damage. And this team actually ended up being pretty good and had some like meta relevance in like even like season 10 of Dark Zone or something like that. This team was still being used. But again, it always lost to the mages, and now we just have so many options when it comes to mages that there's no reason to do this like jury rig bootleg team. So because this jury leg bootleg team it's not a thing. It honestly never was a team. It was just like good synergies that you're settling for. Now that like it's even less usable than it was in the past, I'm putting Lynn like super awkward character, like better than Horo, I guess. Like she looks really cool. Like Lynn looks like she's one of the strongest sinners in the game, like that laser beam. But the problem is the laser beam, like each individual tick of damage takes so long, and it takes so long for her to get like 3 stacks before she's able to do that burst of damage and break a core. And she only buffs the crit damage if she breaks the last core. And there's just so many like caveats to Lynn and her potential and what she does that she really is just like, there's so many guardrails on Lynn that she falls down to this usable if you're a fan category. And I think she's worse than Endurus. Next up is Lissandra. Lissandra technically goes on to the Aurum Secretum team, but honestly, Lissandra is better just as a standalone core breaker. Lissandra can break a core, receive 1 empower, and then keep breaking cores. Lissandra is incredible just as like a standalone core breaker with nothing else. I'm going to say that she is off meta better than the healers, but Lissandra's only problem is that she doesn't provide any damage amplification unless she's in Aurum Secretum, and even in Aurum Secretum she's just providing attack speed, which is not that useful of a stat. So she's really just core breaking, similar to how Labyrinth is really just core breaking, but it's such a cheap core break. And she has like, she's built in tankiness, built in healing, like she's a solid core breaking option. And I'm going to put her in this off meta category because it's so good. I mean, she's just like better Che. Her ultimate cost is cheaper than Che, and again, she has the healing built in and everything else. She's tanky. Like it's just really good. And I'm going to put her in this off meta category right above the healers, just as like, you know, a core breaking option. So doesn't do anything else besides core breaking. Macchiato, congratulations, you're a healer, and healers heal things. Congratulations. I'm actually going to put her above Dudu. Even though Dudu gives offensive stats, Macchiato has a lot of like really nice AFK healing, and that AFK healing I think is enough to put her above the other healers. But again, this is like the healing band. Every team's going to need 1 healer, so pick one of the healers, let it be your favorites, and go from there. The only one that's going to break that mold is Shin when we get to Shin. Okay, next up is Mantis. Mantis is a crit damage burst sinner who theoretically functions very well in Umbra Core. The problem with Mantis is her ultimate cost is really expensive. And it struggles. She has like stacks that she needs to be able to get. She has to like stack up to increase her crit chance and some other things. But her ultimate cost is so expensive that it's hard to get those stacks. And even if you're using like LL, it's hard to get Mantis's, it's so expensive that it's hard to get Mantis's ultimate even when you're using LL. So because Mantis, with Umbra Core being a thing, because Mantis's SP cost is so high, I am going to have to place her in like the off meta category. I'm going to say she's worse than Jane. It's just, it's so expensive, man. I can't explain. And then even beyond just like the SP requirements, you have to be in the corrupted state, the mania intensity in value corrupted red state, and it's just so much to manage, so much to micro, and like there are times where you just want to pull the trigger, but you can't because either you don't have the SP or you're not in the in value state or it's just some other restriction. It's close to being good. It has the numbers, like the damage numbers, but it doesn't have it takes too long to get your stacks. It takes too long to get your SP, and it takes too long to get into your in-value states, and it's just, there's some guardrails on Mantis that keeps her in off-meta territory rather than like Anzo's favorites her meta. Very good center if you have the situation in which she can be used. But there are going to be some times where you bring Mantis and she like, every time you want to use her ultimate, it's not available for some reason or another. And it feels bad to use her in those contexts. Next up is Matilda. Matilda used to be really high on my tier list back when Kokolek teams were a thing. Nowadays, Kokolek teams are not a thing, and she's just a core breaker with a, not so good core breaking ultimate. She breaks 2, but not an AoE and single target. And she has like a once per battle ECB that turns her into like a machine gun. And that once per battle ECB machine gun is actually pretty good. It's just that, like, who cares? I'm going to say... oh, this is actually hard. Better than Darren? I think she's better than Darren. Right? Better than Darren. Yeah, better than Darren. She's going to be in the usable tier. Usable if you're a fan. She used to be really good. But again, Kokolek's not really a thing anymore. Kokolek teams don't do anything. And Matilda doesn't provide any damage buffs. She doesn't provide any sauce beyond that core break. She really just has her ECB, and while the ECB is okay, it's nothing special. It's nothing to write home about. Like, she's usable. You're gonna have some like fun moments with her, but when we're talking about like dedicated teams, there's no way Matilda's keeping up with any of the dedicated teams. It's a rough time. McQueen is another one of these characters that used to be really strong, like used to be up here because she just like nuked everything. And she's kind of fallen into the same problems that like Yao has and Darren, where like boss HP bars are just larger now. So it's more difficult for her to reach the same highs that she had. Like her burst damage is not as bursty as it used to be. But she still has good damage. She still has like a very large AoE 2 core break. And it's a very easy, simple playstyle. So I'm going to still put her in off meta. I'm going to say right below Mantis. Mantis has higher highs because Mantis can hit larger numbers, but McQueen has more consistency because her AoE is larger, it's online more often, and you have some like niche uses of like keeping the copy sculpture on the field and like using it as a blocker for a certain amount of time before exploding your clone. McQueen's really, really solid. And if you haven't looked into McQueen yet, I recommend you do. Now, she does require that you have like a really tanky target like an Endura. And she does require ECB3. So there's some caveats to McQueen. But McQueen's good. And I do recommend her. Like she's very, very solid. Okay, next up is Mess. Mess used to have a spot in the game when the game first released. There weren't too many people capable of doing big damage, and with her normal attacks, she was able to be animation canceled for some big damage. Back when like Luvia Ray was being animation canceled, back when Langley was good, back when a lot of things that don't work anymore used to work. And nowadays, again, what she doesn't work anymore, and I'm going to say that she's in the usable tier. She's better than Horo, but that's about it. Better than Horo. Thumbs up. Good damage, has to play around an awkward like stance mechanic where her attack goes up and down based on how many attacks you've done with the hammer or the sword. And ultimately, like the juice is not worth the squeeze. All right, Mira. Mira's good. She plays like an Endura, where she wants to get hit. And she wants to get hit by like a billion times and like counterpunch a billion times. And she's all about like taking a hit and hitting you back like a revenge play style. but it's held back by the fact that she's not Endura, so she can only block a 1, and it turns her into like this really weird niche category. Just with low attack stats, so it's hard for her to hit over armor. Bosses are usually hitting you once very hard, not like 8 times very fast. So there's a lot of drawbacks to this that really, she's limited by the types of opponents that she fights. And most opponents don't play into her mechanics very well. So I'm going to say better than the Enduras, but worse than Reforged. No, better than Reforged Ella. She has like some niches where she's going to like pop off and like do some things in your casual content, but it's never going to be that absurd. Okay, more. Oh, I shit talk more all the time. Like I never truly respect more. There are so many people who are going to be like, you have to put more up here. Like, she buffs damage so much, and I probably should put more up here. Like, honestly, I probably should have more in the Anzo's favorite category, but I'm not doing it, and you can suck it if you don't agree. More has a few problems. The first problem is positioning. Positioning with Moors can be very awkward. She breaks 2 cores. Cool. If you're positioned correctly. Okay. She gives a 40% damage buff. Okay, cool. If you have ECB3 and if you're positioned correctly. Okay, cool. And then, even then, with those 2 caveats, like she breaks 2 cores, she provides a 40% damage buff. If your shields are still alive, you really need like a high level, like a level 90 more or something like that. Because if you don't have level 90 more, like mine's level 70, your more shields will break. And when your more shields break, more is useless. More is useless when those shields break. She doesn't do anything. She has to, like each cast of her ultimate is so high value because it's either 2 core break or 40% damage boost. And she really wants to do both. She doesn't have like an ECB, right? Like it's not, I mean, she does have an ECB, but it costs her SP, right? Like all these other centers. Let's look at Thistle. Thistle breaks 2 cores with her SP, and then she has an SP-less ECB that provides the damage buff. Moore uses her SP to break cores, and then uses her SP to apply a damage buff. And if that flow is disturbed in any way, if a shield is broken, or if like the positioning is off or something like that, then Moore really struggles really fast. And it's, I don't know. I'm not a fan of Moore. I think Moore struggles in ways that more supporters don't want to acknowledge. And again, she needs her ECB3. And if you have her ECB3, if your shields aren't broken, if you have the positioning down, if you're on a physical team, then yeah, she's up here. But there's just so many caveats to everything that she does that I am going to just put her in the meta category rather than like the Anzo's favorite category. I will say one thing to note is that she works exceptionally well with Summer because Summer will double dip on Moore buffs, where Moore will apply the Matrix to Summer. Summer will summon a drone, and then Moore will also apply the Matrix to the drone. So the drone is double buffed by Moore, which is a really silly interaction, but it works. So if you're using Reforged Summer, then Moore is one of her best partners. But ultimately, like, meta category, she can break 2 cores and she can provide a damage buff, but you have to pick because there's SP requirements, and even when you're picking between the SP requirements, you have to have a high level ECB, you have the positioning requirements, and you have the SP requirements. Like there's just so many caveats to Moore. If you get the dream scenario, if you're able to pull it off, congratulations. But there are other characters who do the same thing that Moore does, but easier. Okay, next up, Mr. Fox. Mr. Fox sees play in like less than 1% of content, but in that less than 1% of content, he is the best option that you could possibly have. In fact, one of Moore's benefits that comes up again in less than 1% of content, Moore is able to block crowd control effects with her ECB. And that becomes really good if you're fighting like Zoya, and Zoya's trying to stun the entire map, and you're just like, haha, we're immune to being stunned. That's really good. Mr. Fox is the same way. If you're worried about like your entire team getting frozen, if you're worried about your entire team getting stunned, if you're worried about something else happening that will Like, if I get stunned, I lose. Then Mr. Fox is great because he just says like, haha, you're not getting stunned today, haha. But I mean, most of the time, you're either playing around to not get stunned, or you're just eating the stun and healing through it. So it doesn't usually come up. And if it does come up, then you should probably just use more anyways. So Mr. Fox has niche play in like less than 1% of content, but it really is just less than 1% of content. Next up is 99. 99 is the same thing as Hela, except a little bit worse. She is a body that soaks up damage, heals a little bit, and strikes back. There's not much to say when it comes to 99, but she's there. She's a body on the field. Congratulations. Next up, body on the field is Nino. Nino sits there. She's an Endura who blocks 2 and soaks up damage. And that's about all she does. Now, congratulations. If you need Endura, if you need to block 2, if you need somebody to soak up some damage, Nino's your girl, just like any of the other Enduras. So pick your favorite Endura. That's really what it comes down to. Nox, specifically Reforged Nox, is going up here behind Thistle, because Thistle can be used on magic damage teams and physical teams, whereas Nox can only be used on physical teams. So yes, Thistle is better than Reforged Nox. I said it, you heard it here first. I'm right, and you can't convince me I'm wrong. But on a realistic note, like in the situations where Nox is being used, Nox is better than Thistle. Okay, like if you put Nox and Thistle on the weak spot team, Nox will be more useful than Thistle on this team. That's just a fact. But the reason I'm putting Thistle higher than Nox is because Thistle is able to see play on more teams, more varied content. And that really gives Thistle a level of flexibility that Nox does not have. But Nox can wave clear with Reforge, she can break 3 cores, and she buffs physical damage for the entire team. So she's just a really strong center that can be included on any physical team. And if your team does physical damage, Nox is a welcome addition. Okay, next up is Oak Casket. Oak Casket's Reforge is actually pretty good, but she is off meta with her Reforge. I wouldn't even say that she's meta. She's just off meta. She is able to... Yeah, she's good. She's a good damage dealer. All right, most of her Reforge focuses around her snipe, and not all of it, because she has her spin stuff too. But the spin stuff isn't as strong as the snipe stuff. But the problem with the snipe stuff is that if you really want to get it going, the best way to increase the damage is with Jelena. And if you're using Jelena, you kind of need to hit the crit. And if you miss the crit on your snipe, then it sucks because you don't get very many chances to hit the crit. So it turns into like this crit fishing thing, and I would spend the Reforge materials elsewhere. But if you decide to Reforge Oak, she can do some things, right? She can wave clear, she can snipe some bosses, she can do some silly things. But she's doing silly things, not like team staple things, right? Like it's better if you just use a more coherent center than Oak's like disconnected ideas. I think that's the best way I can say it. It's hard to explain Oak. She spins things for AoE damage, or she can snipe things for single target damage. Both of those are good, but other characters are doing more than just damage. There you go. Oliver, I'm not even going to talk about Oliver. I hate this character. Oliver will always be on the last rung of the tier list because nobody likes Oliver. And if you like Oliver, I'm sorry, you're a bad person. No, I'm kidding. But like seriously, I do question why you like Oliver. I'm never going to understand you. We're never going to see eye to eye on that aspect. I'm not judging you. I'm just saying I don't understand you. That's all. Okay, next up is Owo. Owo is meta. She is, yeah, weaker than more. Actually, you know what? Better than more because she sees play on more teams. Owo can be used on magical teams. She can be used in arcane crit. She can be used for crit chance. She can be used on physical teams. She can be used as a core breaker. She can be used as it's like a little minion sacrifice. She can be used on the true damage teams. Like Owo can see play anywhere, and that gives her a level of flexibility that more does not have. That being said, Owo has like this army of supporters that think that she is the best thing in the world. And she's not the best thing in the world. She's just okay. Like, she's worse than Thistle. Okay? Like, that, to put that in perspective, like, Thistle is just a better OO. If you were trying to use OO, just use Thistle instead, honestly. But OO does help. And if you want a laid back, like, don't think about it option, OO works. With OO, you just give the ECB to whoever you want to do damage, and then you keep OO next to your damage dealer. And if you're doing that, then OO has done her job. So it's a low thinking, damage buffing tank support unit. It's a lot of things. That has some utility when it comes to core breaking and the minion sacrifice. Like, she does a lot of things, but she doesn't do any of those things particularly well. Everything is just kind of like mediocre. Not mediocre. Everything is just kind of like above average. Nothing's great. It's just good. So she's meta, but she doesn't quite reach the Andros favorite territory. Okay, next up, Picassi. Picassi, you need help. You need lots of help. She's too slow. She uses her ult and breaks a core, and then she applies like a radiation field that does damage over time. And like the idea is that like when her radiation makes somebody like, you know, explode or whatever, they turn into a puddle of radiation on the ground that increases the radiation that the next person takes while they're standing on that tile. But it's just, the damage is so low, and this is such a slow playstyle that it doesn't really fit anywhere. Even in like Picassi's prime, she wasn't really doing much. And I loved Picassi. She was one of the first A ranks I leveled up. But she just doesn't have the sauce to go with her. So the AoE core break is pretty good. The ultimate is pretty cheap, so she gets some value there. But she does struggle to keep up with some of the other options. And I'm gonna say worse than EMP, better than EMP. Like, this is a tough call. She's like in EMP territory, right? Where like the numbers aren't there, but the AoE 1 core break is actually pretty nice, and she has some sauce. But I don't know, it's too slow, the damage is too low. There's obviously better options than Picassi, but she's fun if you need like that AoE core break option, and like enemies are willing to stand inside your radiation zone for way longer than they should be. If Picassi could choose where her radiation zone went, like if it didn't just explode around her and she could just like throw her radiation at range, she'd probably go in this niche slow debuff team. Like, she would actually fit really well with this team. But this team's primary strength is that they hide away from the enemies, while Picassi has to like stand inside of the enemies to do her job. And having to stand inside of your enemies makes it very difficult for you to, you know, stay alive. Next up, especially because like this niche slow debuff team is being used in like challenging content where like if the enemies get to you, they hit you and you explode. So like the entire point of this team is that the enemies don't get to play the game, they don't get to interact with you. But if you're using Picassi, you have to interact with the opponent. So almost fits in this niche debuff slow team, but not quite because it's not safe enough. Okay, next up is Peggy. Peggy is an Endura who blocks 2, and if you want to use an Endura, if you need to block 2, then congratulations, Peggy is an Endura who blocks 2. Thumbs up. Use Peggy or any of the other 10 Enduras who also block 2. Thumbs up. Poffy, I think is her name is. She works with the Immortal Sinners, and she helps them with in-value stuff. But honestly, it doesn't do anything. Like, there's never a time where you include Poffy who's like, oh, Poffy made the difference. So she's going against the usable if you're a fan category, but honestly, she doesn't really do anything. I'm going to put her like below 99, sure. Close to being a comprehensive sinner, but not quite there yet. Priscilla used to be very good. Go back to the Matilda explanation and read about all the things I said about Matilda. And yeah, used to be very good. Auto attacks don't go very well nowadays. The Flora thing, the Luvia Ray thing, the Langley thing, like anybody who's relying on their auto attacks is worse than they were in the first year of the game. And with co-collect teams not really being a thing anymore, like not being a viable strategy, Priscilla really has fallen off the truck pretty hard. And because she's just a reticle who's here to do damage with her auto attacks, I have to say that she's like in the same Flora region, but is better than Flora at least. But worse than EMP, because at least EMP is breaking a core. So use Priscilla if you want to. Like she's usable, right? If you're a fan, use her, but nothing fancy comes from Priscilla, which is weird because she's like the fanciest center in the game. Okay, I was dreading this one. Pilgia. In the context of S0 Pilgia without Shin. S0 Pilgia without Shin. Useless. Useless center. S0 Pilgia without Shin is useless. Go watch the Pilgia video and listen to me complain about Pilgia for like 10 minutes straight. This character does nothing. Okay, moving on. No, I'm kidding. That's S0 Pilgia without Shin. S1 Pilgia is literally double damage. I have a video on my channel called The Difference Between S0 and S1 Pilgia. Go watch that video, because it's literally, S1 from Pilgia literally doubles her damage. Okay, so when we're talking about Pilgia, from here on forward, I am talking about S1 Pilgia, because it's double damage, okay? S1 Pilgia actually does some damage, but she still has the struggles where she needs to enter the invalue state. She needs to enter the corrupted state. And Pilgia's primary use is as a wave clear center. And she can't wave clear until she's in the invalue state. But she goes into the invalue state by clearing waves. So like if you're able to get into the invalue state, you didn't need Pilgia. And if you need Pilgia, well, it doesn't matter because she can't get into the invalue state. So it's this weird like catch-22 where she can't do what she needs to do until she's done what she needs to do. And like it doesn't work. It's such a backwards design. But S1 Pilgia, when cheated into her invalue state, does become good. And there's a few ways that you can cheat Pilgia into her invalue state. You can cheat Pilgia with using like Do a Row. Do a Row can purposely defeat your own ally and then revive your ally. And when your ally falls, Pilgia will instantly enter the corrupted state. You can cheat out Pilgia with Cassian. You can use Cassian. Cassian automatically revives. You can use him with like Skyfall if you want to. And Cassian will fall over. He will immediately revive. And Pilgia will immediately enter the corrupted state. So there's ways that you can cheat out the corrupted state and get Pilgia online. That being said, Do a Row is not increasing Pilgia's damage. It is not useful. Cassian can improve Pilgia's damage and is useful, but it's harder to force that invalue state. You like Do a Row can choose to defeat her ally. Cassian has to be defeated, and there's no way that he can like force that to happen unless you're using Skyfall Crime Brand. But like, okay, we're in Skyfall territory now. So they're both able to do it, and Do a Row does it easier. But Cassian provides a damage bonus. But the real creme de la creme is using Shin, because Shin's going to use her ECB anyways, and when Shin uses her ECB, Pilgia will enter her corrupted state. It's not instantly, but one Pilgia ECB is enough for one Shin ECB is enough for Pilgia to enter her corrupted state. So Pilgia's best partner is Shin, and honestly, I would not use S1 Pilgia unless it's paired with Shin. Okay, you need both of these on the same team, in my opinion, right? Like, sure, you can make it work with Do a Row, you can make it work with Cassian, but honestly, if we're talking about raw effectiveness, like, Shin just does it better than those two. She provides better buffs. She's providing the attack buff, she's providing the normal attack buffs. Like, these are all buffs that Pilgia is using. Also, Shin is an immortal, so you have the immortal synergy. Like, there's just so much synergy between Pilgia and Shin that there are I would say that they're a mandatory combo. That is my opinion, mandatory combo. And Pilgia has to be S1. If you don't have any of these things, if you don't have Do a Row, if you don't have Cassian, if you don't have Shin, and you have S0 Pilgia, she's useless. She fails to probably fulfill her own role. She can't wave clear until the waves are cleared. So why are you using a wave clear center? You can't clear the waves until the waves are already cleared. It doesn't make any sense. But in the context of S1 Pilgia with Shin, and probably with LL, right? Like you need the SP as well. She is actually in the meta tier. Actually like really good. Like I can't say she's better than those. I'm gonna say that she's better than OO and more. I'm gonna say it. Like S1 Pilgia with Shin is very good. Very good. Very, 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 very good. Huge AoE that breaks 2 cores, and you can use it in BFL, you can use it in ROTD, you can use it in story. Like it's good as long as you're able to stay in that corrupted state by abusing Shin. So I'm in this tough spot where like an optimal Pilgia is actually like very good in this meta category, and a non-optimized Pilgia is in this fails to properly fill their own role category. And even when like a properly utilized Pilgia is in this meta tier, Pilgia sort of needs her ECB3, and she also needs Shin's ECB3 so that there's more in-value income so that Pilgia can stay in the corrupted state when she enters it. So where do I put like such a heavy resource demanding sinner who has a really good payoff? I don't know the answer to it. Like it's a very heavy investment, but the payoff is there. So do I put her in the meta because that's where her peak goes? Do I put her in the fails probably fill their own role because that's where her lowest is? Or do I put her in like this off meta category because if you're missing some aspect of her kit, she is going to be off meta at least if you have her S1. If you have S1 and Dual Row or Cassian, then like she is going to be off meta even without Shin. And honestly, I don't know the answer. But I will say that like a peak Pilgia will be in this meta, but I'm going to put her below Angel in the off meta category. Again, because she requires her S1, because she requires some very specific partners, and because even when you have the perfect setup, there is always the chance that she like falls out of the corruption state again, especially in like ROTD and story stages and stuff like that. Like you have to play around Pilgia. So you also need Tempestuous Void, the crime brand. If you're not running Tempestuous Void crime brand on Pilgia, you're just doing it wrong, and like you're going to feel bad about yourself. So there's just so many caveats that while she could be in this meta tier, I am dropping her into off meta. And she might actually be like a top of off meta. She might she's somewhere in here, right? Somewhere above Hestia in this mix with Korn and Angel. Like she's somewhere in there. But I'm gonna leave her in off meta. But again, watch the Pilgia guide so you see how bad she is at S0. Watch the difference between S0 and S1 video so you can see like how important that first shackle is. Like Pilgia has a lot of requirements, a lot of caveats to her strength. Next up is Rahu. In the context of Reforged Rahu, this shit is broken. Reforged Rahu goes into Anzo's favorite category. She's a wave clear sinner who never dies and also increases the physical damage her enemies take by 40%, which means it scales well with other buffs. So good buff diversity, no oversaturation of buffs or anything like that. Good wave clear, never dies. You don't have to worry about a heal or anything like that. The only reason why she's in the back of Anzo's favorites instead of like the front of Anzo's favorites. Oh, I should. Hold on. My bad. Hella's supposed to be down here. I don't know why Hella was up there that entire time. The reason why these three are down here at the bottom of Anzo's favorites rather than at the top of Anzo's favorites is because these three have to see play on physical teams. Physical teams only. Thistle, Cabernet, Infer, Jelena, Lady Pearl, and LL can all see play on all teams. Whether it's physical, magical, or true damage, they can see play on it all. But for the most part, these three need to see play on physical teams. Like Hella has a little bit more flexibility. She can be used on true damage teams. I wouldn't recommend it on true damage teams. So like, as good as Rahu with the Reforge is, still worse than Thistle because at least Thistle can be used on magic damage teams. and core break. Rahu is there for wave clear and a damage buff for your entire team, but it can only be used on physical teams. So there's a caveat there, right? Okay, next up is Rise. Also, real quick, check out the Hilda Pools video. Go to like my live stream section, go to live, and watch me pull S5 Rahu, because that shit was hilarious. Okay, moving on. Rise. Moving on to Rise. We are putting her in the somewhere in the usable category. I don't think she's off meta. Her SP costs are surprisingly high, because she has to cast like 3 swords before she can detonate them, really. Because the problem with Rise is that she can throw out her swords and then she can detonate her swords. But if you throw out 1 sword and then detonate, throw 1 sword and then detonate, you're spending 1 detonate per sword. So the real way to do it is to throw out 3 swords and then detonate, because then you're getting 3 swords per detonation, and it's more SP efficient to do it that way. The problem is that if you're waiting for 3 swords every time you want to detonate, it does require a lot of SP at that point. Like, getting 3 swords out does take a second. And Rise used to do enough damage to take down BFL bosses. I have a video of Rise taking down a BFL boss at like 250k score. Rise used to be like top notch. But she's just getting weaker and weaker as time goes on, and more options are available, and like the bosses get tankier. Like, it's happening, right? She's not keeping up in the way that she needs. I'm skipping all these into the blue songs. Give me a second. We're going to Corrin's. Corrin High Noon Gunfire. There you go. Okay, so when we're talking about Rise, core breaking's good, the mobility is good, the damage is okay. But she really is struggling the more HP her foes get. And I think she's still better than Darren. Better than Matilda. Yeah, somewhere, like, usable, right? Still usable. But doesn't quite reach, like, the utility that Irene and Koklik can provide. So, honestly, like, I should move Ark up here next to Jane, because, like, she's pretty close to Jane, but again, the problem with Ark is that she's so SP demanding. Oh man, it's so rough. Like, I want to put Ark up here because Jane and Ark are so similar, but Jane just does it differently. Yeah, and I talked about her. I already talked about Ark at the start of the video, but yeah, there is like a lot of positioning requirements that Ark has. There's a lot that Ark needs to consider. I'm remembering why I put Ark down here instead of up there. I really want to put Ark in this off-meta category, but she has so many caveats that like Jane and Pine don't have. But we're talking about Rise, and Rise, she's good, but I don't know. She's really 5-head to play. She requires a lot of brain power, and the payoff for that brain power is not as high as you would want it to be. Still better than Darren. Like, honestly, Rise is the S-rank version of Darren. There, I said it. Okay, next up is Ruleka. Ruleka's awful. Honestly, I never liked Ruleka. She saw a lot of play in the first year of Path of Nowhere, when people were still relying on like auto attacks to defeat BFL bosses, but we haven't been in that auto attack to defeat BFL bosses for a long, long time. And even then, Ruleka was like a gimmicky version of that era of Path of Nowhere. And I'm going to say worse than Garofano. There you go. Ruleka is worse than Garofano. I said it. I don't know anything about this character. I don't even know her name, honestly. What is her name? This is Rumina. Rumina. She comes out with Irea. I remember that she does something about summons and that she's an Endura. So I'm going to guess, because she's an Endura, that she's going to end up in this Endura band. That's where I'm going to guess she ends up. So, like, you know, this is like Endura. Like, there's like 12 Endura stacked at top each other in this usable if you're a fan category. So I'm going to take a guess that she ends up there. But I don't want to make a definitive statement, because I honestly don't know if she has any like supportive aspects or anything like that. Like, I don't know what she does, and I don't want to make like a rash statement. So I know she does summons, and I know she's an Endura. So she's probably up here, but I don't know if she has any sauce, so I'm going to put her in the to be decided category when Irea comes out. Actually, these are all going to be decided at the same time, because this entire team is dependent on how good Irea is. So we'll see what we'll see what happens. Okay, next up we are talking about Reforged Zoya. This is Rust. Rust has not been released yet on the global servers, but we are going to talk about him here in this video. He is a... Oh boy, there's a lot of information to convey here. There's going to be a new Potesta called Limit Break or Over Limit. We don't know the translation, the official translation yet, right? I'm going to call it Limit Break. And Limit Break works like Last Stand, except it's a really high bonus that is temporary, not permanent for the entire stage. And Limit Break is not really intended to be used unless you have sinners who interact with the Limit Break mechanic directly. And Rust is one of those sinners who interacts with the Limit Break mechanic directly. Reforged 99 actually operates with the Limit Break mechanic directly. Reforged Zoya operates with that Limit Break mechanic directly. In fact, they are making Limit Break the Legion special. So any Legion character, you can kind of expect that they're going to be on this Limit Break team, because that's what Path Nowhere has sort of decided to do. All of the Limit Break characters are Legion characters. So the idea here is that with Reforged Zoya, she operates kind of like Corrin does, where she has this really long straight line attack that pierces all the enemies. She kind of just smashes the ground and sends out like a shockwave of corrupted mania crystals, and she decimates everything down the line. And then she also has like a One Punch Man kick. It's not a punch, but she kicks them really hard. She has an ECB that's it's a nuke. It's the biggest nuke in the game. It competes with like Adela for how hard her nukes for. So Reforged Zoya does have some sauce that allows her to be playable, and I've seen a lot of footage. I'm curious as to how it plays though, because I read a lot of mixed feelings about Reforged Zoya, but from the footage I've seen, it looks good. Reforged Zoya is going to be very crit based, so she's going to need to be paired with Jelena, and she is dependent on the over limit mechanic, the Limit Break mechanic, so she is going to need to be used with Rust. Like, this is a very combo setup. You need Reforged Zoya and Rust to be used together, and you ideally want Jelena to increase their crit damage. But if you have all the pieces, I think it's a really strong physical damage team. And I think I'm going to put them up here, like, tied with weak spots, like somewhere in this weak spot bleed area, right? I think it's going to be very strong from the footage I've seen, but I don't want to judge the horse before I've had a chance to play it. I don't want to, I want to be conservative, but I think they're going to be very strong. I think they're going to be very, 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 very strong, but I don't know yet. But the footage I've seen, somewhere up here in this weak spot bleed Umbra Core, like somewhere in Anzo's favorites, like it's very strong. So be ready for a new dedicated team. Reforged Zoya will have a banner at the same time that Rust does, so you can grab both of these at the same time. The only thing that you need to have ready is your Jelena. So get ready. If you like Zoya, she's coming back with a vengeance. Serpent got her reforged recently, and I rated her too harshly when I first made a video about her. She's actually way better than I gave her credit for. Like, way better than I gave her credit for. Oh my god. This character's insane. I thought the ECB was kind of useless, but like, it's such a quick cast and it lasts her so long, and it applies the serpent bite that she uses to break 2 cores. It's really like the damage amp, who cares? But like, it's a free, no cooldown, large AoE, slowing damage over time, debuffing, buffing, core breaking setup masterpiece. Like, I don't know. This character's insane. True damage, can break 2 cores, has like really good consistent damage and a large AoE built on her spins. Like, it's good, man. Now, she can see play on the Shattered Blade team because she does amplify true damage for the entire team. So if you want to use her on the Shattered Blade team, like, go ahead. She can be genuinely too powerful when used on this team. But I don't want to put her up here because she's not really Shattered Blade. She just worked with true damage. So while she can go on Shattered Blade, it's not like Shattered Blade needs her. So I am instead going to put her in like the Anzo's favorite category, and I'm going to put her below, above Cabernet. That's a tough call, but somewhere here in this Anzo's favorite category. It's so hard to say because like Cabernet, Infer, and Jelena are basically like 3 versions of the same center. So I kind of want to put like Serpent either above or below these 3 because they're functionally the same. But I can't say that she's worse than Cabernet, and I can't say that she's better than Jelena. So I can't really put her below or above these 3. I kind of have to put her somewhere in the middle. And if I zoom out to a larger perspective, like Thistle is basically the same variant of those 3 centers too. So it's either below Thistle or above Jelena, and I'm hesitant to do that. So I'm just going to split the middle, and I'm just going to say that she's better than these 2, but worse than these 2. So Reforged Serpent, very strong. Much better than I originally gave her credit for. Holy crap, she hits hard. And like that ECB having 2 casts and like no cooldown, like actually makes it really flexible and just really solid center. Really, really good. And the true damage means she can be used anywhere, so like she can tag onto any team. She's not exactly going to synergize with every team, but like if you just want to like throw in some extra damage, sure, go ahead. If you want to throw in some extra damage, sure, go ahead. If you want to throw in some extra damage, sure, go ahead. And again, she has a very large 2 core break AoE, so like worst comes to worst, she's still a core breaker who's like a sub DPS, like very strong center. Very, very impressed with Reforged Servant. Okay, next up is Shalom. Shalom, oof. 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 How times have fallen. She used to be the strongest center in the game. And then we started coming out with like all these dedicated teams. Like dedicated teams are a new thing. It didn't always used to be like this. We had 3E back in the day. But when Shalom came out, there wasn't really any. I don't even think there was 3E at the time of Shalom's release, was there? Shalom before or after 3E? Shalom was before 3E. So yeah, when Shalom came out, there were no dedicated teams. The only dedicated team that we had was Bleed. That was the only dedicated team we had was Bleed. That was without Jasmine. Bleed was like the first inception of a dedicated teams. And in fact, they did it so... They ham-fisted it so hard that they ended up giving people compensation because they changed how Sumeri and Pepper's abilities worked. Sumeri and Pepper were in the game before Levi and Drea, and their bleed mechanics worked differently in the past. So Anzo ended up changing how the bleed worked on like a fundamental level and gave everybody like respec tickets for Sumeri and Pepper. If you have like an S5 Sumeri, you could use that refund ticket to like refund all of those shackles into like generic A rank shackles, and you could put those shackles on other people. Like it was a really generous like respect apology because of how they changed the core mechanics of bleed for the better, right? They made bleed better, but they still refunded it. And did the same thing with Hypatia very, very recently. Hilda came out and they introduced this idea of resonance. And they're like, okay, how do we make Aurum Secretum work with Aurum Secretum, but not with other summons? And they're like, okay, we'll use resonance. It's a new keyword that hasn't been used yet. And they put resonance in Hilda's kit, but they did not put resonance in Hypatia's kit. So they're like, okay, we're going to fundamentally change how Hypatia works. And because we're fundamentally changing how she works, we're giving everybody 10 pulls. Congratulations. Even if you don't have Hypatia, you get 10 pulls because we changed the description on one of Hypatia's skills. And so when they try to ham-fist these teams, they do it. And they send out compensation if they need to change the wording on some of the abilities and how they work with future mechanics. And even though we don't have the Resonance ability yet, Irea comes out and she makes Resonance work. And then these three can actually resonate together. It was the same thing with Bleed. Like, sure, you could apply 2 different bleeds, or now that Bleed has been reworked, you could apply 2 different bleeds, but it didn't matter because Drea wasn't released yet. But once they released Drea, oh boy, Bleed sure did work. But anyways, we're off topic. Shalom is from a time where dedicated teams were not a thing. And in that era where dedicated teams were not the thing, Shalom was the strongest option in the game. She made the game laughably easy. There were times where it's like, oh my god, I am using like 6 meta mages. I'm using Raven, Irene, I'm using Luvia and Lamia. Like, I have an entire dedicated setup for magic bosses. And if I replace all 6 of them with just Shalom, I do better. Like, that was genuinely a thing when Shalom released. She was that good. But with the addition of dedicated teams, Shalom has fallen off more and more. Shalom on her own can't keep up with like the plethora of teams that have come out. She can't keep up with arcane crits, like crit scaling. She can't keep up with reforged summons, like buff everything scaling. She can't keep up with anything nowadays. She's really, really struggling to reach the same highs that she reached when she was first released. That being said, she's still very good as a standalone center. Like, she's still usable. She's still off meta. I can't believe I just called Shalom off meta. What the fuck? But it's true. She's off meta now. She doesn't. One of the big problems that Shalom has is that there's a lot of, how do I want to word it? There's a lot of synergies between Arcanas. And even though Shalom plays like an Arcana, she's a reticle. And it's weird because all the reticle buffs, reticle specific things that could happen, she doesn't benefit from that because she plays like an Arcana. And then all the Arcana specific buffs that come out, she doesn't play well with those because she's actually a reticle. So Shalom's in this weird role where, like, not only does she not have a dedicated team, but she struggles to find a home because she's a reticle who wants to be an Arcana. So Shalom herself, standalone, is very good, but in the context of the larger Path to Nowhere meta, she's fallen down on pretty hard times just because she doesn't have a home. If she had a home, she'd be absolutely broken. But the lack of home really, really does hurt Shalom. Okay, next up is Shin. Shin is broken. Genuinely too powerful. Better than Augustus? Better than Augustus. You know what? Best center in the game. Better than Reforged Della. Yeah, there you go. Shin is overpowered in every sense of the word. She takes Cabernet's job and does it better. She takes Lady Pearl's job and does it just as well. She takes Hamel's job and does it better. Hamel is like 4 centers combined into one character for some reason. She's with S1. She's a map-wide healing, attack buffing, normal attack buffing god who increases the generic damage of all centers based on how many immortals are on the field, which counts herself. So if you're just using her, you at least get 1 stack of the immortal buff. But if you're using her and Pilgi, you get 2 stacks. And if you have her S3, you have 6 stacks for 36% more damage, which completely invalidates the existence of Infer as well. So Shin can invalidate Infer, Cabernet, Lady Pearl, and Hamel all in one center. And she doesn't have SP. So she can just use her strongest. She can just be at max power like 3 seconds into the match without draining any resources from her team. So Shin is broken, and she has a rerun coming at the end of January. And if you don't have S1 Shin, you should get S1 Shin because she just makes life so easy. Like, I don't play stages without Shin anymore because she just solves so many problems. Like, every problem I run into, it's like, okay, Shin solves that. The only thing she doesn't do is core break. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they gave her core break. Honestly, Shin doesn't even care about her crime brands. You can run whatever crime brand you want on Shin. And if you want Shin to be a core breaker, sure, put Paradise Regained on Shin and let her core break too. She doesn't need her crime brand. She doesn't use those things. I run Nomad on Shin, and Nomad doesn't do anything. So yeah, use Paradise Regained and she can be a core breaker too. Congratulations, she's 5 centers in one character. It is crazy powerful. Go watch me rant about how good Shin is for 16 minutes on the Shin guide. Absolutely insane. Actually, you know what? I've got the image for it. Where's Shin? Go watch the. Oh no, not that one. I've got the. Oh man, I'm ruining the moment. I'm really ruining the moment because my layers are off now. Okay. Go watch the Shin video. It's 15 minutes and 45 seconds of me talking about just how freaking good Shin is. It's insane how powerful this character is, and she was a mistake that PtN will never financially recover from. Seriously, it's going to be nearly impossible to make a center better than Shin because Shin is just 4 centers in one. So unless they make a character who is like 6 centers in one, then like we're still going to be using Shin. Insanely powerful how good Shin is. The only reason why Cabernet is not seeing play is because Shin is just a stronger Cabernet. Like straight up just power crept Cabernet. It's a rough day for Cabernet fans in that regard. But Cabernet is still useful, right? Like if you don't have Shin and you have Cabernet, like Cabernet is very good. But if you have Shin, just use Shin. Just use Shin everywhere on every team. Like she's best in slot here, she's best in slot here. She's best in slot in every single tier on every single team. So like just use Shin. Just get her S1. Like trust me, you're going to enjoy it. Okay, moving on. We are going on to Reforged Summer. I'm gonna pick a song real quick. Behind the Curtain, Light of New Hope, sure. Yeah, that works. Okay, Reforged Summer. She has a lot of hype behind her, but I do not buy into the Reforged Summer hype. I think Reforged Summer is good. Okay. So Reforged Summer has a few problems. Despite being very high damage and being able to like solve damage check stages, like some ROTD stages, some Tide of Ashes stages, some of the Data Crevice stages, like Summer is good in all these scenarios where it really is just put centers to a board and see how hard they can hit. Summer can fulfill that role. But she's very picky about how she does it. She wants Eve, she wants Jelena, she wants more because she double dips with more buffs, she wants Shin because she double dips with Shin buffs, and even then, that's 4 people who struggle to core break. It's Summer, Moore, Shin, Eve, Jelena. Sorry, 5 people who struggle to core break, so you have 1 more slot, and you want to include like 8 different people to further increase Summer's damage, but you desperately need core breaking at that point. So you need somebody who can somehow break enough cores. You might have to drop another member so you can get enough core breaking. And even then, all of your damage, all of your eggs are in Summer's basket, and Summer is entirely single target. So if you run into situations where like there's multiple waves, Summer really struggles. Like her damage gets cut. Like even if she has to spend 1 attack attacking the wave, her damage is being cut in half. Every time she doesn't attack the boss, her damage is being cut in literal half. And it can be really crippling. So while she's like top tier in very, very, very specific content, I'm going to say that she's meta. I'm going to say it. She's meta, but she's so restrictive in the content that she's allowed to play in. Again, it has to be single target. It has to have a low core count, and she has to be able to use her favorite team members. If you can do all those things, she's going to shred and reach like unbelievably high numbers. But outside of like the ideal environment, she can actually struggle really hard. So meta because her highs are so high, but not any higher because she's niche. She has a niche. She is not like a general play character, that's for sure. She needs an AoE, she needs a core break, she needs something in order to be not niche. but she's already like insane in the content where she does see play. And the fact that she has a niche isn't necessarily a bad thing. I would just call that good design. So, meta. Okay, I'm going to switch to the next song. And then we're going to talk about Synex. Oh, Synex. God, Synex. Normally I would put her like right above Zoya because she's actually just like a slightly better Zoya. But Zoya is not on this tier list anymore. So I'm going to say worse than Flora. Okay, so Synex has a few problems. First of all, her damage is low. Like, actually, her damage is lower than Flora. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm don't shoot the messenger, okay? I'm just telling the truth. Synex's damage is lower than Flora's. Okay, that's just what it is. But Synex makes your team do 25% more true damage, right? You can use her in true damage teams. No, not unless you have her S1. If you have her S1, then sure. But without S1, her damage amplification mark falls off because she doesn't have enough attack speed to maintain it forever. So that doesn't work. And then she also, for whatever reason, right? The Shattered Blade team, let's go to the Shattered Blade. They can just fire off their skills. They don't have to worry about SP. Synex has a 20 SP cost, and it takes her a second to get that 20 SP. So she doesn't really enter her strong state unless you spin Empowers on her. And why are you spinning Empowers on Synex when she's so weak? And it's just... there's so many problems with Synex. Go watch the Synex guide. Just go watch the Synex guide. I complain about it. Not a very good character. Very disappointing. The design is lovely. The voice is incredible. The attitude is very playful. I love the character. But man, the Synex is just... she's not good. She's not good, man. The damage is too low. The ECB doesn't do anything. She has no core breaking. She has no utility outside of the true damage mark that falls off unless you have S1. And even if you are using her for the true damage utility, you're like, oh, she makes the Shattered Blade team do 25% more true damage. Okay, Infer makes them do 40% more damage. Reforged Serpent makes them do 20% more damage, and Core breaks and does everything else that Reforged Serpent does, and give attack boost and all this. Cabernet makes them do 30% more damage. Thistle can break cores and make them do 20% more damage. Jelena makes them do like 40% more damage. Lady Pearl can core break and make them do 30% more damage. LL can give Augustus more Shattered Blades to play with. There's just so, like, there's even in her optimal teams, Synex is again replaced by the stronger supportive options. It's the same problem as Garofano, where like Garofano looks like she should be used on weak spot, but it turns out on weak spot there are still better options than Garofano. And so even though Garofano can only be used on weak spot, there's better options on weak spot, and there's ultimately like no reason to play her. So same thing being said about Synex. Even though Synex does have a niche team that she could theoretically be used on, turns out that the generic options are better than Synex even on her dedicated team. So why would you use Synex on her dedicated team? And more importantly, why would you use Synex outside of her dedicated team? It's just a rough scenario, man. Tetra, slightly better than Dr. Iron. Tetra theoretically can increase allies' crit chance by 20%, but like who cares, because Tetra has to break the final core, and Tetra's a bad core breaker, and all these other limitations. Like, she's usable if you're a fan, sure, she breaks cores in AoE, but like that's about all that Tetra is doing, and you shouldn't really be using Tetra unless you're just like a really big fan of our cat burglar. Okay, Thalia. Thalia, she plays like Langley, except instead of doing the corpse explosion stuff, and instead of doing the like slow damage marking stuff, Thalia is instead slowing their movement speed and increasing the damage they take. So you've got a reticle who is more supportive than anything else, and the supportive buffs are weak. They are weak. So I'm going to say that she's usable if you're a fan, but ultimately there's better options, because even though she does have like the supportive stuff, it's not strong enough for her to see widespread play. and it would probably be better if she just did more damage anyways. But cool character, just not very strong. Thani, not a big fan of Thani. She is I don't know. Her SP cost is just too high, so it's hard for her to accomplish much of anything. She has this idea where she's supposed to. She's an interesting design space, that's for sure. She has this idea where she gets stronger based on how much SP she's holding, and it's supposed to give her like one big nuke. So if you never touch Thani and you let her sit in a corner for 90 seconds, and she like collects all the SP she could ever want, and you buff Thani and you launch that one big attack, cool, that one big attack hits hard. The problem there is that Path to Nowhere's most commonly used Potesta is Empower. And Empower is used to like cheat out people's ultimates 3 times, right? Like if I'm using blue in the Arcane Crit team, I'm going to click blue ult, and then I'm going to use Empower, and I'm going to click blue ult, and then I'm going to use Empower, and I'm going to click blue ult, and I'm going to use Empower, and I'm going to click blue ult, and I'm going to do that until I've clicked blue ult like 6 times. In the context of Thani, like why would I rely on this SP overcapping mechanic that she's like built around when I could just instead cast somebody else's ult 3 times? Like it works if Thani gets to like 90 SP or whatever. Like, why would I ever want somebody to get to 90 SP when I could have somebody like Blue who only needs 15, and then I could just cast that 15 as many times as I need it? So it's an interesting design space, but with how Empower works, I don't think there's any space in Path to Nowhere for Thani outside of like some super niche stage. Like Tide of Ashes comes to mind, but even then, I don't think she's doing anything in Tide of Ashes. I don't think that her one big hit is going to matter. And even then, you'd probably want to use her on Arcane Crit team. And even then, you would have to hope to God that she crits, because if she doesn't crit, you'd have to play the entire 3-minute stage over again. So, like, I don't know. Cool design space, but loses to Empower. LOL. I forget this character's name. It's like Uni or Umi or something like that. Yeah, it's Uni. Uni is an Endurant who blocks 2, and that's about all she does. She does have like some damage immunity and damage reflection stuff that gives her a bit of a niche, but her niche isn't impactful. Just like all the other Enduras down here, their niche is not impactful, so they all end up in the same band where it's like, pick your favorite Endura. They all do Endura things with different text. Next up is Vanilla. Vanilla was very strong when she first came out. In fact, she was like super meta, but she's kind of fallen in the same way that McQueen has fallen. In fact, in the exact same ways that McQueen has fallen, where she's lost that burst damage. Like enemies are getting tankier and tankier, and she's not dealing any more damage. So it's harder for her to burst down opponents, but she still has all the things that make her good. It's easy for her to enter the in-value states. She has a really large 2 core break AoE, and she's a really consistent core breaking, tanky damage dealer, like jack of all trades kind of thing. And ultimately, I think it's a very strong, complete package for like an offensive Endura. Like they do the offensive Endura part really, really, really well. But ultimately, like, the supportive Enduras do it better. Rahu and Moore and Owo, they just do it better. Like, the problem with Vanilla, right? Like, let's say Rahu. They print somebody who says, I do 1 billion physical damage. Rahu is still good, because Rahu's making them do 1.4 billion damage. Same thing with Moore, same thing with Oo, right? Like, the person who's doing 1 billion damage is still doing more damage, and Rahu is now useful. If they print somebody who does, I deal 1 billion physical damage, and you have Vanilla, well, Vanilla is now replaced. She doesn't get better, right? Vanilla's not helping your 1 billion damage center do more damage. Instead, Vanilla is competing with that 1 billion damage center. And Vanilla loses that fight every time. Because if a center can do 1 billion damage, why would you do like 4,000 damage with Vanilla? There's no reason to do it. So she's fallen off from her previous like top of the meta category that she was when she released, and she's going to keep falling off as more and more centers get made, and as the stages get harder and harder. Like it's undeniable that stages are harder nowadays in BFL, in Mania training, in ROTD, in Data Crevice. I know Data Crevice. People talk about Data Crevice and how hard that is all the time. Like, stages are getting harder. I have a video on my channel showing Raven soloing BFL in Dark Zone. Raven is soloing Dark Zone at some point. Nowadays, Raven doesn't even tickle Dark Zone. Okay, like, enemies are getting harder, and Vanilla doesn't have a way to keep up with it. So she's falling behind, and she's going to, again, keep falling behind as time passes. Unless they find a way to, like, give her a billion HP, unless there's, like, an HP-specific team, Vanilla's going to keep falling off harder and harder and harder. And it's going to happen faster and faster each time. But right now, she's still off meta, but I don't think it's going to be long before she joins Yao. But again, large AoE to core break, she at least has something to help her stick around for now. But I don't know how long that's going to last. So be careful is what I will say. Okay, next up we have Victoria. Victoria is another one of those characters who used to be very good. I have so many BFL clears of Victoria. Victoria was one of the first centers that I raised, mainly because of a misunderstanding. I'll talk about the misunderstanding here because it's kind of funny. Irene has this effect where whenever her allies use an ultimate, it makes Irene's ultimates stronger. And Hamel has this ECB where she toggles between states. She toggles between a healing state and a damage state. And you can cast that toggle like 15 times in 1 second if you want to. So I didn't have Hamel, but I had Irene. And I wanted Hamel so that I could toggle Hamel on and off again and make Irene stronger. It was this weird case where, like, the best Irene buffer was Hamel, because Hamel was just giving Irene stacks. Up to 2. And if you had Shackles, it was up to 3. But it turns out, like, having 3 stacks of Irene was better than using, like, Priscilla or some garbage, right? Like, we didn't have Cabernet or Infer. We didn't have buffers. We just had everybody out to fend for themselves. And Irene buffing herself was, like, the best option available to her. So I wanted Hamel, but I didn't have her. But Victoria also has a toggleable ult. So Victoria ult can toggle just like Hamel's does. You can turn it off and on and off and on and off and on just as fast. You can do it 15 times in 1 second if you want to. And I asked Reddit, that was my first mistake. I asked Reddit, hey, guys, does Victoria work like Hamel does? Where I know I can toggle Hamel ult, or toggle Hamel ECB 15 times and get Irene stacks. Can I toggle Victoria ECB and also get Irene stacks? And everybody said yes. Everybody said yes. The first comment was like 15 upvotes yes, and the second, third, fourth, and fifth were like, of course it works. It works with Hamel. Like, why are you even asking this? You dumb? Some variant of that. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna raise my Victoria, and I'm gonna, like, have a mage on my mage team that's gonna make my mage stronger. It's gonna be great. And I make Victoria P3, phase 3, I get her ECB, I start toggling in a dark zone, and nothing happens. That's right. Toggling Victoria ECB, despite Reddit's insistence, does not work with Irene. So I get jebaited. It was a dark day. No, I liked Victoria anyways. I was going to raise her eventually anyways, but I like prioritized her because I thought she was going to work with Irene, because that's what the internet told me. But you can't trust everything you read or see on the internet, folks. Heard it here first. So yeah, Victoria. I realized I spent all that time talking and I haven't once talked about what Victoria does. She used to do good damage. And even back in her day when she was doing good damage, it was convoluted. She's very empower hungry. Very empower hungry. But if you can get Victoria to, like, spam her ultimate 8 times real fast, then she will, or she would absolutely carry you through Dark Zone in the day. And like if you had the minus 30% energy consumption, Victoria would just pop off because she would just, again, spam her ultimate 5 times in 1 second and would do great. Nowadays, Victoria has been directly replaced by Blue. Blue is just S-rank Victoria, honestly. Like, they both have that same attack AoE. They both shoot out like the ray of projectiles that do several hits of damage, except Blue does it better. She buffs her team's damage. She does this, she does that, and she core breaks, and the SP cost is cheaper, and she does more damage. Like, Blue is just directly better than Victoria, and Victoria has been getting weaker and weaker as enemies get stronger and stronger. And while Victoria can be used in the Arcane Crit team, ultimately there's better options that also core break for the Arcane Crit team. So, Victoria, I want to put her in off meta. I do. I want to put her in off meta. She might even be off meta, but the lack of core breaking hurts her too much, and I'm going to put her below Rise. I think that's an accurate place to put her. Definitely not as good as Irene. I think Rise is better, but she's better than what Matilda's offering. Matilda's offering core break, but the AoE clear that Victoria offers, I think, does outweigh what Matilda is offering for team. So, usable if you're a fan category for Victoria. One of my favorite characters, though. One of my favorite centers. Wendy! Wendy, same thing as Victoria. Wave clear center. Ultimately, there's better wave clearing options, but if you need somebody to clear waves, she's actually pretty good. The problem with Wendy is that she's actually pretty dangerous when she goes to do it, because she's going to be taking a lot of aggro, and honestly her damage isn't as high as Victoria's, and her SP cost is a lot higher. Wendy does have the ECB for like a free cast of her ultimate, but that's kind of janky, and ultimately it hurts Wendy quite a deal. And I can't say that she's better than Darren. I can't say she's better than Donald. I can't even say she's better than Langley. So I'm going to put her above Cynex. There you go. That's an appropriate spot. Okay, next up, Wolverine. Wolverine has some sauce. He used to be pretty good back in the early days of Dark Zone because he could drop his 9 traps on the boss. All 9 traps explode, and it turns out doing all 9 traps of damage was pretty good back in the day. He also had like a pretty decent auto attack back when auto attacks were relevant, and he decreased their defense. He does something with like a small amount of damage happened somewhere in his kit, and it turned out that was strong. That was strong enough for him to see play pretty consistently. But just like all the other early Dark Zone choices, he has fallen off. Like Mess has fallen off, Priscilla has fallen off, Luvia has fallen off. Like all of these early Dark Zone options were really just because we didn't have Infer or Cabernet or any of these like damage buffers. And before the era of damage buffers, Wolverine was like a good sub DPS. But nowadays, sub DPSs aren't really a thing outside of a few outliers, and it's usually just better to replace what Wolverine would be with like an Infer or a Cabernet or a Shin or an LL or any of the other, like a Thistle, any of these other buffers. So Wolverine has fallen on hard times, and I think he's better than Wendy. All right, Woohoo Hanzi. Woohoo Hanzi is in this weird state where like I could put her up here in Arcane Crit, and I think I'm going to do that, but by her own, I think Woohoo Hanzi is like the bottom of off meta, maybe top of usable. I think by herself, like, yeah, here, bottom of off meta. But I am going to say that she is a reasonable addition to the Arcane Crit team. If you don't have Blue, if you don't have Reforged Eddie, I think Wuhanzi is your next best bet. I don't recommend it because the AoE is so small that it's going to be difficult to play around. But hey, if you don't have any other options, like this will get you through. It's better than Shalom on the Arcane Crit team, that's for sure. I think there's... Okay, so here's the difficulty I have. If you are using Arcane Crit Woohoo Hanzi, right? You're just using this with Jelena. I don't think it's better than these meta characters. I think it's like below Pilgia, right? So like I want to put Woohoo Hanzi down here below Pilgia to show that like, hey, if you're using this version of the Arcane Crit team, it's not as good. It's still good, it's just not as good. But it's hard for me to do that without making the tier list infinitely more complicated. So I'm going to put her here with the understanding that the audience will be able to interpret that Woohoo Hanzi is significantly worse than Blue and significantly worse than Reforged Eddie. And you should really only be using this if you don't have these other two options. And like, you pick one of these three. You not use all three of these. You pick Blue or Eddie or Woohoo Hanzi. And only Woohoo Hanzi if you don't have any other options. So ultimately, I'm going to put her there in the Anzo's favorite category. But easily replaced. Yan Yan, in addition to the burn team that is struggling because the burn team is struggling, I think she is significantly better than Yao. Mainly because, and Yao used to be significantly better than Yan Yan. But again, Yao has fallen off and is going to fall off harder and harder as bosses get tankier and tankier. And Yan Yan, while like not scaling as fast as the boss, isn't falling off, right? She's still doing her thing without murdering her team. And she's able to, in the context where a burn team is hypothetically usable, she is still hypothetically usable. So I'm going to put her... Like, I want to put her in off meta. Yeah, let's do it. Yan Yan, you're off meta. Congratulations. Yan Yan's off meta. She did it. She beat the accusations. Yan Yan is better than usable. But again, only in the context of like a burn team actually being good. Where you are running Thistle. Where you are probably running Hestia. You might even be running Yao. You probably are running Yao. Yan Yan, she relies very heavily on the burn team. But even in the context of no burn team, I think she still has enough sauce for her to stay off meta. But you're starting to split hairs here because she might be down here and usable. But I have enough faith that in a correct setup, she is off meta still. In the correct setup. And last up, we have Zephyr. I have a Zephyr guide on the channel. She's one of the few A ranks I have a guide for. And it's actually one of my favorite guides. The problem is that she struggles with the same problem that all of the other burst damage centers are struggling with, where that the tankier the enemies get, the harder it is for these burst damage centers to keep up. These burst damage centers with like no supportive options. And they're just slowly but surely going to fall off, kind of like how Vanilla has slowly but surely fallen off. Zephyr is slowly but surely falling off. And I don't think she's quite useless yet. Oh man, am I going to put Zephyr in off meta too? But then my tier list looks weird because it's 2 rows. Or it's 3 rows instead of 2 rows. Oh, I have to make hard choices. Oh, I don't want to make hard choices. Okay, I'm doing it. I'm sorry, Yan Yan. I'm sorry. You're better than Yao. But Zephyr, you get the off-meta slot. I think you're better than Yan Yan. Zephyr is a burst damage catalyst, which is unique. It struggles because she can't really work an arcane crit and other arcane options similar to Shalom, or Shalom's a reticle who plays like an arcane. Zephyr is a catalyst who plays like an arcane, so it's a little weird. It can benefit her sometimes, but usually I think it hurts her. The interesting thing here is how much damage Zephyr does. And Zephyr's biggest weakness is that while her percentages are really high, like she does like 3,000 or 4,000% damage or something crazy like that, her attack stat is very low. So for Zephyr to keep up, she really needs her enemies to have low defenses, or she needs a team that is giving her a ton of magic penetration or a ton of attack. And, The ideal scenario is both, where she has a ton of attack and a ton of magic penetration. So if you want her to be a shining star, you really have to go out of your way to set up with very specific buffs to like get her attack stat up to stuff, because that attack stat is low. It is cripplingly low. But assuming that the opponents don't have enough defense to shrug off Zephyr, Zephyr does a lot of burst damage, for a very cheap amount, and there's not much that can withstand it. She's very similar to Blue in how she hits, except she doesn't have core break, so she's worse than Blue, right? She's a worse version of Blue. But for an A rank, like, she's really good, especially for, like, again, story, mania trading, ROTD, like that kind of stuff. She actually does pack a punch, and she's able to execute things very effectively for a very cheap SP cost. You use Zephyr and LL, oh my god, you'd be amazed at how hard Zephyr hits. So check out the Zephyr guide, because I'm actually really impressed with this character, and I think she has a lot of sauce that doesn't see too much play, because again, the attack stat's really low and difficult to play around, and like there's other options that are just strictly better. So like, why would you use Zephyr when you could just use Blue or Hanzi? Like, you start getting into some weeds there. But I think Zephyr is really good, and she's strong enough to be called off meta. Okay, and that's ultimately the tier list. We have some unreleased characters that I've given thoughts on, but have not thrown into the tier list quite yet. And then up here, we have the genuinely too powerful people, where Shin and Adela are both mistakes that see play on way too many teams and are way too good at what they do. And then you also have Shattered Blade, because Shattered Blade does true damage and ignores 99% of the game's mechanics and just completely overwhelms the entire board, while, you know, spending no resources at all. They have Shattered Blade, they don't spend SP, and it's great. They can run Last Stand, they can run Empower, they can do whatever they want. Like, Shattered Blade is just quite literally built different, along with Shin and Adela. And then we have Anzo's favorites. These are generic pieces that can work on pretty much every team. I mean, every team with asterisk, because these last three want physical teams, but you guys get the idea. Like, these are really flexible pieces that can go in and out on pretty much every team. And if you have like 2 or 3 of these, then your account is looking really, really strong, because you're going to be able to complement any team with these like staples. Like, these are the staples. I should probably rename this to like team composition staples, right? I might actually do that, but you know what? Let's do it. Team composition staples. You're going to use these on every team, and they're gonna kick ass everywhere they go. And then we have Anzo's favorites. These are all dedicated teams. You have dedicated Reforged Summon team, you have the dedicated Weak Spot team, the dedicated Bleed team, dedicated Umbra Core team, and the dedicated Arcane Crit team. These are all Anzo's favorite teams, and they just like these teams more than like others, right? They don't like the Burn team. The Burn team's not up here. Koklik team's not up here. Anzo certainly has their favorite teams, and boy, do they show it. I'm gonna recolor this one too. I'm gonna. There you go. You're nice and purple now. These dedicated teams are what Path Nowhere has been built around more and more. Anzo, the developers of Path Nowhere, are leaning more and more heavily into dedicated teams, where they keep on printing like new additions to pre-existing teams with like Margaret and Jasmine. And then they are also introducing new dedicated teams with like Zoya and Rust. So this is what Path Nowhere sort of built on in the modern day, are these dedicated teams that are indeed Anzo's favorite. And then beyond that, we have the meta category, where these characters will see play on can see play on a wide variety of teams, but there's just something about them that's holding them back just a little bit behind the others. But yeah, if you want to use any of these meta characters on these dedicated teams or outside of these dedicated teams, like, you can, and they're absolutely going to shred, and you won't be disappointed by their performance. But there's just something about them that prevents them from becoming team composition staples. They're just good meta picks, not necessarily like staples. And then we have a bunch of off-meta centers, including a bunch of healers. And these off-meta centers are good, and they can sneak into high difficulty content from time to time, but you're not going to see them that often. While they can sneak onto high difficulty content, they're not going to be regular inclusions to any high difficulty content. They can just kind of poke up when the moment is right. Like Pine and Jane, they're only seeing play in wave clear. Hestia is only seeing play in wave clear. Pilgi is only seeing play if she's S1 with Shen. Like there's a lot of caveats to all of the sinners in this category. But if you manage to overcome their caveats, then they are exceptional. And then we have a larger section that is usable, and I even put like a niche team here because this team I still think is relevant, even if the content they see is like less than 2% of the game. I think the Echo, Lisa, Kelvin, like the enemies don't get to play the game setup with Lamia, I think it's very good. If you just want to like, if the stage does not have a time limit and you're just like, okay, I'm gonna stick all of you in a corner somewhere. I'm gonna have Lamia apply neurotoxin, and then I'm just gonna sit on the other side of the map as you slowly toxin to your doom. Then I'm going to do that. And there's nothing the enemy can do because they're just stuck in a corner, unable to move. And you can like infinitely stall out otherwise like incredibly difficult stages because these sinners are just good at infinitely stalling their enemies. So if you need to infinitely stall your enemies, like congratulations, these will do it. These will clear very difficult content, but it's, you know, very specific. And then we've got a very large usable section where they're not necessarily doing anything wrong, but they're not doing anything right. They're just like, okay, like if you want to use them, sure. They're not going to disappoint per se, but they're not really doing anything special to punch above into the off meta or meta categories. If you try to use these in like BFL, you're going to notice you're using weaker sinners. Like high difficulty content, like you're going to notice that these can be replaced. And then you have sinners that are just really bad and they fail to properly fulfill their own role, including the one who will not be named. And then I gave my individual thoughts about all of these characters already. Go back into the video to find my thoughts on these, but they haven't been released yet. And I don't want to jump the gun and put them in the tier list when I haven't tested them myself. I made an exception for Margaret because it's weak spot, and it's weak spot. Like, what more do you want from me? It's weak spot. But yeah, anyways, that's the tier list. I've been going for 3.5 hours now. I'm actually recording this on Christmas Day, so this is how I spent my Christmas. And this is coming out on New Year's Day for you guys, so exactly a week later. And hope you guys have enjoyed your holidays. And yeah, catch you later. It was nice. Like the video, subscribe, join the channel as a Shalom lover or a Shalom hater. Join the Discord somewhere on one of my live streams. You can find the Discord link there if you want to find it. Share the video with your friends, with Reddit, with I don't know, you guys still use Tumblr? Share the video in places where you would want to share the video. And I will catch you guys next time. Peace.